What's going on? Good morning. 6 o'clock from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I am Robert Walsh. NBA and NHL drafts wrapped up over the weekend. Now we're looking at free agency. Quite a few big names trying to decide where they're going to play in 2024. Paul George signing a 4-year deal with the 76ers worth $212 million. Philly hoping playoff P can help Joel Embiid get over the playoff hump. James Harden signing a 2-year, $70 million contract to stay with the Clippers while Chris Paul was waived by the Warriors. Now signs a 1-year deal with the Spurs. NHL free agency set to begin at 11. There is no shortage of stars available for the hockey teams to pick from. Sam Reinhart, Steven Stamkos are among the most prominent names on the open market, and that's just people with contracts. You could trade for some people, too, like Mitch Marner, Patrick Lane, people that have been talked about as potential trade candidates heading into the offseason. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Monday morning as we welcome you to a brand new week and a brand new month right here on 104.5 The Zone. Ramon, Kayla, and Will with Brad Hopkins in for Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh back at the controls. I'm Will Bowling. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Good morning, everyone. How are we?
We're good.
Good morning.
It's Monday already.
You know
it's
what?
July 1st, by the way. Happy July 1st.
Happy 1st of July.
Yeah. It's the first of the month.
It feels like a Monday morning, and I guess I'm going to act like it.
That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Hey, but you got a haircut.
Middle of last week, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or your ears lowered, as they used to say back in the day.
I've had it for a little bit.
Hey, really?
Yeah.
Why do you look
You were
so
with
clean
me
cut
like
today?
middle of last week.
I know.
It's
too.
the polo. It's the polo,
Is that what
I think.
you know what? It's the golfing effect.
It really is.
Yeah.
Sure.
Did you hit some this weekend?
No, I was moving all weekend.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah. You get that done?
I did.
Nice.
You're
I did.
bug free.
It's a great
You're
feeling.
bug free.
Not necessarily. I'm not bug free.
Oh.
The bugs have followed me.
Are
I'm
you
sorry, what?
serious?
Dead serious, yes.
No, Will.
Unfortunately, that is the case. Not as bad as at my old place. I'm glad this is humorous to
my
all
God,
of you.
Will.
My pain is your entertainment.
Oh, my God.
Allow me to dance for you. I'll be your clown. But it's not great. It is not great, but we're making it.
Can I just ask real quick, just because I don't understand the insect whole
Like I
line of
understand
thing?
insects. What are you? I'm not an insectist.
Did one just like happen to hang around?
Apparently, I mean, it didn't just appear
I told
there.
you. We talked about
I
that
don't
during
know.
the week about them laying eggs in
Well,
your
you're
stuff.
the one that called it, and I blame you for manifesting this into the universe.
You said you were taking care of it. You said
I
you
did
were-
take care of it. Every time I would get a box out of my car or out of the moving truck, I would immediately unpack it. And I only saw one in a box, and I immediately killed it. So I don't know how it happened, but clearly did.
Man.
Well, hopefully those bug killers get them all.
Yeah, right.
We will see. We're going to see if roach bait from Target works first and then go from there.
Okay. That might.
Store-bought brand. I see.
That's right. Robert Walsh, welcome back. Good morning.
What's
How was
going
your
on?
trip,
I
man?
feel like a cockroach right now.
Do
so,
you?
yeah, if anybody has any of that spray, just let me know and put me out of my misery.
Sure.
Use it as deodorant. Hey, Bert, how you doing, buddy?
I'm hanging on by a thread, but I'm here.
Oh, so how was the weekend?
It was as good as it could go, hanging out with a group of 18 guys, but
God, that is a lot.
yeah, it was more than I would ever like to hang out with. In fact, there are 2 more men in this studio than I would like to be around right now. So
That's wild.
I want to hang out with no men. I almost made Winston sleep outside. I cannot deal with saying random athletes' names anymore. Watching highlights, talking about golf, any.
The Tavon Austin highlight tape.
I'm serious. We watched him. We watched. Of
course you did.
I just can't do it anymore. I can't.
You know what you need, Bert? You need a pedicure.
I need to hang around a woman.
Me?
I need,
that's
what
right.
I just said.
I
what I just said.
never in my life did I think that I would want Cheyenne to come back around. See, she
Right.
also went on a trip. So yesterday,
Did she have as much fun?
yeah, she had way more fun than I did. She went to St. Louis with her friend. So they went to an aquarium, a zoo, art museum, a baseball game.
Oh, that sounds tailored.
They had way more fun than I did. I promise you. That's a lie. I had a great time, if you can't tell by my voice. But it is nice to not have to just hear people hollering for
Right.
no reason.
18 guys. I
Well,
mean,
congratulations
I
to your buddies.
Yeah,
that's
it was
a lot.
it was a good weekend. We had a lot of fun. Charleston was a blast. But I am glad to be back here and not having to drink copious amounts of alcohol.
Hey, you know what? I did a wedding in Charleston.
It's beautiful down there.
We stayed in one of those. We actually, as couples, there was like 8 couples. We stayed in this one giant house. It was really cool.
It looks like a cool city.
Yeah, did you know that they are the number 2 location for bachelorette parties?
Yeah, I
and they
did
were
know
not
that.
nearly as annoying as they are here. No pedal taverns,
No tractors?
no
Nice.
all girl cowboy hat, pink uniforms.
nice.
They were just all very nice,
Normal?
Yeah, yes, yes. I think
Didn't
we
know
should
that
make
word
them the new
existed anymore.
bachelorette destination. Change it from Nashville.
You sound like my parents. Like, oh, they're just very nice girls.
They were all church going girls. They all Charleston has its own kind of
So
like,
they didn't hang out
You
with
know
you.
what? I'm just proud of Nashville. We finally have a national identity.
Oof.
As terrible
know
as
if
it
you want
actually
that.
is. We have a national conscience, guys.
615-737-1045 is our number. Today we welcome Texas and Oklahoma to the Southeastern Conference. We're going to talk about that coming up in just a few minutes. The NHL draft came and went over the weekend. Of course, UC Saros gets the extension. That will likely be announced this week, potentially today, as the new league year begins in the National Hockey League. And Kayla, Yaroslav Askarov also stayed a Nashville Predator over the weekend.
I like it. I wanted to see that.
Yeah.
And I think good move there by the Predators, who also will probably add somebody in free agency, which has now opened up, as you heard in the update.
How's the money situation for the Preds? Can they afford like some top line kind of dude?
Yes.
Yeah,
can.
I mean
Nice.
they're talking about possibly like a Steven Stamkos coming over, which isn't it's not a penny. It's a little pretty penny, but
About maybe $4 or $5 million a year for an older player. Predators, according to capfriendly.com, at this point of the process, have $26 million available.
it's different in hockey too.
I just
It's a good amount of money.
Yeah, it's
like-
so different.
I was really like, what?
Right? Because you're thinking comparing to NFL, you're like, wait, $26 million.
Well, or even basketball. I'm just,
It's such a different payroll.
Yeah.
$26 million a year will get you a backup point guard in the NBA.
It's wild,
exactly.
right?
Get you Chris Paul with the Spurs.
Yeah, 1 year, $11 million yesterday.
Crazy. I think 7 teams.
Elsewhere this morning, we have got the most underrated Tennessee Titans. You can answer that at Ramon Kayla Will, our question of the morning, and we will give you ours in hour number 2. Teresa Walker will join us at 8:20, talking about the Predators' moves and about the Titans as well. And Monday morning, you're not that guy. In hour number 4 at 9:20 today. Guys, we are in the thick of nothing. Ooh. We are in the thick of get a good TV show, get all your hobbies done, clean around the house, kill all the bugs in your house at me. And we're 23 days away from training camp 2024.
It's like get your rest while you can. That's what I'm doing. I'm binging on every show. I finished The Bear this weekend.
You finished The Bear this weekend?
I mean,
what
I'm just
in the
on
world?
a roll, man. I'm on a roll.
How do you have so much time?
I mean, on the weekends, baby, I don't go out and do the
gosh.
partying thing anymore.
The guy,
I sit my ass at home
And
and
you just binge.
because I know once football season
sounds
starts,
nice.
I
Yeah.
work 6 days a week. There is no time off.
That sounds really nice.
Oh, look at you. You get ramped up like the players do before the season starts.
Absolutely. Except for I don't have the money to go to like Cabo and all these extravagant places. By the way, I saw DeAndre Hopkins is opening up his own bar in Clemson.
Oh, yeah?
I was like, man, that guy is a business entrepreneur. He's not even retired yet, and he's ready to go for.
He want to open up
life
one
after
down
football.
on First Avenue?
I'm sure that one kind of is something he wanted to do for a while since he's a Clemson grad.
Fair enough. So the whole how was The Bear then?
Oh man, it was so good. It was too short. So that's the other thing. It's
Yeah, you
on
didn't ration
Hulu. And so each episode is about 30 to 40 minutes, but there's commercials during every 5 minutes. I felt like there was a commercial.
I've got the ad-free one.
I need to do that.
Yeah,
I
it's
need
worth
to
it.
upgrade. And so I just felt like it was a little bit shorter than I anticipated. 10 episodes. So I guess it's not that short,
Yep.
but it was really good. And it made me like want to, in a way, like go to a fancy restaurant and sample those like just little delicate dishes, because that's what they do on there with their
yeah.
I'm told on YouTube a salt rifle helps with bug issue. What the heck is a salt rifle?
Oh, it shoots salt.
SALT.
Oh, okay.
Those guns
Not
that shoot
salt. I was like,
they shoot salt pellets, right? Little salt.
Robert Walsh,
granules.
what in the world is this?
You can put regular Morton salt in there, but I think the rock salt works best. My dad has one of these, so they come in like this is so stupid. They come in like Walmart. You can go to Target and get one, and you can get a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, and you fill it with salt. So if you see a bug, you could just like shoot it with salt. It's more for flies than it is for cockroaches.
I was about to say, either way, if you see the roaches running around, the problem is way on down the road.
Oh, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Right. So you need to get professional help, man.
Oh, no,
get sprayed.
It hasn't worked.
Get your joint sprayed.
It has not worked.
We got to get you a cat.
How do roaches keep following you, Will?
I don't know. It's my TV stand is what happened.
oh,
So
really?
it's my old TV stand that has like nooks and crannies in it you can't get to all of. And so when my movers moved it, two of them ran out from under it, and we killed them both. And then we put it in the truck, got it out, took the wrap off, and none appeared. And then I got back from the Nashville SC game, and there were 3 live ones. So one of them was like running on my floor, and I killed it. And then 2 more, I took my flashlight under my TV stand and shone it and lured them out and killed them. So I thought I was good. Narrator, he was not good.
Good Lord.
Real quick before we go to the
I'm
break.
scared.
In a brand
for
new,
you,
like
Will.
totally clean apartment, like nothing. There's nothing I'm doing.
Real quick before we go to the break,
scared for
Will.
you.
When you came in your room, in your apartment, and you saw that roach,
615-737-1045. We're not doing this. Coming up next. I
I'm
promise
gonna
you
have
our audience
nightmares.
does not care, and I really don't want to relive this. Coming up next, Texas and Oklahoma are officially SEC teams. What do you expect from them in their first season? We'll do that next.
Oh, my goodness.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Y'all, have you ever had a contractor supposed to come to your house within a time frame and they not show up and got you waiting around all day long, just wasting away your day? Well, you don't have to do that with Hiller, okay? When you call them, they will set your time, be very prompt about it, send you a text message, call you potentially, let you know when they are showing up, just to give you a heads up like, hey, we're coming to your house. So if you're at work, just go home. We'll be there when you get there. I promise you that. But not only that, this month, you can be a happy camper with Hiller with 0 interest financing for 24 months on select HVAC systems, generators, and tankless water heaters. Or just simply take advantage of Hiller's $99 drain cleaning special. Take care of your home systems before the peak summer temperatures hit this weekend. Supposed to crank up a good bit, so you know that AC is going to be working in overdrive. Make sure you have Hiller over to check it out for you. Visit happyhiller.com today for details.
July 1st means the start of a new year in college sports and across a lot of conferences. A new day has begun. It's Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling on the phones at 615-737-1045. Fireworks last night in Austin, Texas, followed by a Pitbull concert. That is how the Texas Longhorns celebrated joining the Southeastern Conference along with their arch rival Oklahoma Sooners. Guys, what do we expect out of Texas and Oklahoma in their first seasons as SEC programs, and specifically SEC football programs?
I mean, what two better programs to join the SEC if you're going to have teams join the SEC? Not only for the fan base and the footprint that it actually envelops, in the great Southwest there. I mean, I'll tell you what, man, that's a great get. Oklahoma, I mean, these are two, what are they called?
Blue Bloods.
There you go. Thank you. Great word for it. Mm-hmm. They go back in the day of having success, having championships, and they bring, that pedigree right to the SEC, seeming like where it's supposed to be. And I hate talking like that because I'm a Big Ten guy.
Sure.
But
it's painful,
this is our reality. Mm-hmm. This is our reality. It's like, to the victor goes the spoils. Mm-hmm. They continue to add teams that really, I mean, who's next? Florida State? I mean, we're just talking about situations
They've
where
been more linked to the Big Ten, which is wild.
We'll take them. Good night.
Right?
We need somebody with all this firepower that these guys are getting. But it also contributes to the national narrative now, because even during preseason, before teams have even played a game, we'll start to see more SEC teams that are ranked. Mm-hmm. Until the College Football Playoff Committee tells us who they think are, 1 through 25, we're going to be thinking that this is the order of things. That's the way it's going to go. Texas and Oklahoma will easily field some ranked team that then adds to what will be like 16 now.
Yeah.
Of the 25 teams will be ranked, some junk like that found there. That's the way it is.
I think it's the best thing that could have happened for Oklahoma and Texas as programs. And I say that because these are two, like I mentioned, blue blood programs. And we more so, especially with Texas, talk about what they have done in the past and not more so what they've done recently in terms of postseason championships and, wins in the playoffs. Now, Oklahoma altogether, if you think about Oklahoma, first of all, they are a solid program. And they've had a little bit of dip in terms of their success in the past couple of years. But if you look at them overall, Oklahoma has 7 national championships in football. That's more than anyone in the SEC other than Alabama. And their overall just athletic programs are extremely successful as you look at the body of work with them.
Yeah.
They've also had 7 Heisman Trophy winners, more than anyone in the SEC, now joining the SEC. Which will be interesting to see, too, just the production that you get out of individual players maybe in the future of these two programs as Oklahoma and Texas. But like I mentioned, with Texas, they won a lot, but that was really like the Coach Mack era, because after that, if you really think about it, they have Sarkisian now, but they went through a handful of coaches and rotated because they couldn't find success. And now they have to take it to the next level, and they've got to do it in the SEC. But if anything, I think Texas is going to be able to do it in the SEC because now they got a coach that looks like he's good at doing everything you need to do in terms of recruiting and growing a team and developing a team. But now you get to do in the SEC, which to me, you're only challenging yourself to get better week after week.
They're the Cowboys. They are the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. But they got to a Final Four last year. Texas did. I mean, they did prove it.
Yeah,
a season ago. They've had more recent success than Oklahoma.
They expect championships there. That's my point.
The Cowboys are a 12-win team.
Yeah,
they're a 12-win team.
Sure, but they don't win in the playoffs. I mean, they don't even.
I get it, but when's the last time Texas won a championship?
It's a difficult equivalent between only getting to a Final Four. Like if you've gotten to a Final Four, your playoff game equivalent to winning in a wild card round of the NFL is winning your conference, right? And Texas, with ease, won their conference last season,
the Big
and they
12's
went
crap. That's why they're moving.
And they went to Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. So I think Texas has proven it. I think they are coming in with SEC level depth. We're going to get to what coaches in the SEC told Athlon Sports anonymously, like, we love to hate on Texas because they've had a lot of high expectations they've not lived up to in the past 10 seasons. Steve Sarkisian at every turn has lived up to expectations and has turned that program into an SEC caliber program. Brent Venables in Oklahoma on the other end, they've got some questions outside of their 5-star quarterback Jackson Arnold, who's going to play behind a makeshift offensive line this season with a lot of returning weapons. But I don't know what in the world Oklahoma is going to be their first season in the SEC. I have a much clearer sense of who Texas is, considering they have a Heisman candidate at quarterback in Quinn Ewers, and their team is just really, really good. They have SEC-level talent across the board.
Well, now they're going to be doing it week in and week out. They're not going to be playing in the Big 12 week in and week out. And I agree. I think Sarkisian has finally lifted them to the level where they need to be competitive. But the ultimate goal at Texas is to win national championships. And the last one came in 2005 under Mac Brown. So that's still a ways off from what their expectations are as a fan base. And so that's why they fit nicely in the SEC too, is because they expect greatness, right? But you still now have to go from being in a schedule where you're going to have some pancakes here and there to a schedule where every single weekend, for the most part, it's not that.
Right, you don't have to prove yourself every single week or beat somebody by 40 points to match up to somebody else that's just below, the best in the SEC that people are considering better than you.
And you got Michigan in week 2 this year for Texas.
Yeah,
Nice.
They got a crazy schedule.
Where's it at?
Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, in the big house.
Yeah. Should be fun, though.
Oh, it's going to be a good put it this way, it'll be a good indicator, right?
Mm-hmm.
As to who both these teams are.
Mm-hmm.
First year after Jim Harbaugh's gone back to the pros, and Texas is now an SEC team going right into the heart of the Big Ten.
Yep.
Do you think the fan bases are ready to add Texas and Oklahoma?
Yes.
Do you think the Texas and Oklahoma fan bases are prepared for what's coming for them in the SEC?
I had a firsthand recollection of what Oklahoma fans were like. And that was, again, I have not been to Texas's stadium, so I only have heard the stories of Texas. But my first interaction with Oklahoma fans, and this was back in the day, speaking of like 2004 or whatever, when Oklahoma and Washington State played in the Rose Bowl, and Oklahoma at that point was a really powerful program and still has been. But the fan base, man, they came out in droves.
You're talking about Texas, right?
I'm talking about Oklahoma specifically.
Oh, okay.
I have not seen the Texas fans firsthand, but that was my experience with Oklahoma, at least. And by the way, Oklahoma fans, they're some of the nicest fans you'll ever meet, but they are definitely passionate.
I'm going to say this. I mean, abso-flippin-lutely. Because of what Kayla said in the very beginning. These are two blue blood programs. They're used to an SEC-style following. Their support in Texas for that program, are you kidding me? If there are programs in the country that weren't SEC teams that had that kind of feel, it's definitely those two.
See, I don't think Texas fans are prepared for what's coming for them. I think Texas fans have a very inflated sense of who they are, and it was shown in what their quarterback said earlier this week. Friday at the Manning Passing Academy, he told reporters that, we're going to be the biggest game on everyone's schedule. That's for sure.
I don't think so.
Buddy, you're really not. You're really not. I think you're the biggest game on a lot of people's schedules because they are ready to humble you. Yeah. And when I say they, I'm talking about mid-level SEC programs like Mississippi State and South Carolina, who, in their own inflated sense of who they are, feel like they're on your level.
That's the way they think. Mm-hmm. That's because that's the way it's been.
Can't handle the grind of an SEC schedule. Always the line.
I think they're also feeling a little bit high on their own, selves because of the past couple of years, because they finally believe they have, a chance to compete. But it's like, okay, before you come in with high expectations and we're going to beat down everybody, humble yourselves just a little bit as you enter the SEC. Because like I said, every weekend is a dogfight. Okay? You're not getting weekends off. It's not the Big 12 anymore, folks.
So not every week.
Does Texas just have to win a national championship? Is that the only thing they can do to earn your full respect?
Yeah, absolutely for me. Because that's what they live off of.
Isn't that with any program, though?
Not any program, no. I mean, Vanderbilt can go 8-4 and they'll get a ton of respect.
Texas needs to.
That's a fact.
Absolutely.
That's because that's the team I was referencing.
Yeah, like Ole Miss can win 10 games and you're a king.
Nah, Texas
Lane
needs
Kiffin
to.
can stay forever.
You know,
but
it's you know what it is? To me, it's the battle for UT.
Oh,
for me.
jeez.
yeah, here we go.
I'm
This might
sorry.
be-
It's because when we moved
wait.
here, somebody would say something about UT, right? This was back in the late 90s.
You think
And,
Texas?
1,000%.
Really?
We just came from Houston, so we just moved up from Houston.
okay.
So when I hear this reference of UT, I'm like, yeah, what are the Hornets doing? What?
And you would have
Okay.
been living in North Mexico had it not been for a bunch of Tennessee volunteers. You would have been the North Mexico Oilers.
North Mexico.
North Mexico City Oilers.
So they'd be international then.
Yeah.
They'd be the first international
Yeah,
team.
would've, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely would've been.
I don't think I've ever thought of
Silly.
Texas as UT. Now, USC, I think of California USC. I don't think of South Carolina, but some people call USC South
that's
Carolina.
why I said that, because like
USC Junior.
here in Nashville, here in Middle Tennessee, here anywhere probably in this vicinity, UT is Tennessee. In that section, UT is Texas.
Sure.
But what is UT in California?
For me, it was in Washington, it was Volunteers.
Really?
The right answer. 1794 versus the end of the 1800s. I don't know what to tell you. I do think it'll be interesting, though, because I think we as a college football people get lazy about Texas. We do the is Texas back thing, and we don't respect them for the actual progress that they've made. Now, two things can be true at the same time. Their fans can still think that they run college football without winning a national championship since 2005. I think every bit of the discourse around Texas is one of the dumber things that we do in college sports, because they have come a long way. They have built the program the right way. They have a legitimate head coach who is signing legitimate 5-star talent. They are putting players in the NFL. Yet we love to poke fun at the Texas is back thing, because we would ask if Texas was back so many times, and then they would hilariously lose to Kansas, or they would, declare it after a Sugar Bowl, then lose week 1 to Notre Dame. Like things like this, right? That I think have ruined the Texas discourse. They are absolutely a national championship contender in 2024, their first year in the SEC. And they've got a legitimate Heisman Trophy contender as well. So SEC coaches talking to Athlon Sports, one of them says, I think there's a tendency to look at the league expansion from the point of view of the new programs having to acclimate to the league. This might be the other way around. You can't compare Texas or Oklahoma to those A&M and Missouri teams that came in. Obviously, the Alabama transfer receiver Isaiah Bond is now in the picture at Texas, one of the many weapons that have transferred in, replacing A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. And one coach even says, if you're looking for a weak spot, maybe it's the fact that you have the most famous name in quarterback history as a backup in Manning. But that is a problem any staff would take. One other coach says they instantly compare to the top programs in the league in terms of depth and talent, and could definitely win the conference and be headed back to the playoff.
I almost view that as like name some mega corporation that just buys a smaller corporation, but it's successful in itself. It just how about when T-Mobile bought Sprint? Sprint was a big company, right? T-Mobile obviously was bigger. They bought Sprint, and then they just become one. That's kind of the way I see the SEC's relationship with Texas and Oklahoma. There are already two stellar programs, even though they might not have, been contending every single year. As of recently, Texas has been on the mend. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma, I would consider the same conversation, like you said, Kayla. Mm-hmm. But it's just the strong getting stronger, basically.
The thing that I would say about these two programs coming in, and first of all, the one difference, and I think they're both headed in the right direction, especially Texas, who had a really good defense last year, specifically with, Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, who's now in Seattle. They're headed in that direction of, okay, this defense has come to play now. But I think what was not great for these two programs in particular, and why I say they thrive in the SEC eventually, is because that conference did not play defense. The Big 12 was a joke. There was no defense played in that conference, okay? And so to play upper level football, in my opinion, you've got to, yes, have a high caliber offense, but you also have to play defense. And that's just one thing they didn't do in the Big 12, and one thing these two programs will have to do in the SEC, and I think can. But when you look at these two programs and maybe who has the upper hand entering this year, of course it's Texas, because they've got their quarterback coming back, and Quinn Ewers, who has progressed. And yes, Arch Manning, not a bad backup to have, but we don't even know what he is yet because we haven't even seen him. On the other hand, Oklahoma, when you look at their quarterback situation, like Will mentioned earlier, Dylan Gabriel is off to the Northwest at Oregon, and now you've got Jackson Arnold. That's it's a question mark, right? You don't know exactly what you're going to get out of him yet. So you give Texas the upper hand headed into this season, just because nowadays it's the quarterback, right? We base everything on the quarterback, and I think they have that upper hand within the two.
Anonymous coaches tell Athlon Sports Oklahoma is a legit top program, but the secret to the SEC is the line play, and they won't be able to do what they want on offense if they can't protect the average defensive lineman in this league. Another coach says they're starting to round out on defense to a unit you'd expect Brent Venables to be coaching at Clemson. That's the good news entering the SEC. The bad news is that they could be bad on the O-line if they can't pull some guys together late in the portal. I think when you start analyzing Tennessee's trip to Norman in late September and the opening of SEC play for Tennessee and for Oklahoma, that to me is always going to be a plus in the favor of the Vols this season. When they are playing a team that cannot protect their quarterback, Tennessee is going to feast defensively. And James Pierce Jr., the potential top 10 or top 5 overall pick, is going to feast. I think you look at that game without doing the analysis of the actual players themselves, and you think, first SEC start for Nico in Norman, walking into a Hornets nest that's going to be really excited to show the SEC that they are a legitimate SEC environment. For me, that's a loss on Tennessee's schedule as of today, just for that sole reason, right? That's a difficult environment. It's the first SEC road game for Nico Iamaleava. But I think any team that cannot protect their quarterback is going to struggle to score points against the Vols this season. Because if you're able to do that, then you can pick apart the patchwork secondary the Vols have in place. However, if you don't have time to attack that secondary, you're going to have a long night.
Absolutely. That's why I always say that there is a link between quarterbacks and the defense, because the defense's performance tells how much work the quarterback has to do. Mm-hmm. If every time I step on the flipping football field, I'm down by 7 points, and then it continues to grow, now my playbook is dwindling.
Right.
And I've got to do things to get me back in the ball game. Most of those things are predictable. Therefore, my degree of difficulty even ramps up from there. So they're definitely linked. I'd love to be able to get 3 and outs from my defense, get the ball back, and give me some opportunities to chip away and get to the end zone, letting me create a lead. Then we can use all of the playbook and keep that lead until the clock strikes 0.
What I do like about Tennessee in this game, and again, I can't believe we're already talking about just several weeks before the start of the season.
Baby.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's right.
Yeah. I like defensive front for the Tennessee Volunteers, and if they can find a way to get to a brand new quarterback in terms of, this is his first go around too at the highest level as a starter in Jackson Arnold. Man, that could be a fun day too for the defensive front for Tennessee.
Golly, what a start though.
Yeah,
for a young kid, obviously got some games in the bowl game last season, but to start out in Norman, you talked about that environment. Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's going to be for real.
Daryl on YouTube says Texas has a cake schedule. What are you talking about? No, they don't.
Michigan out of the gates.
Colorado State week 1. They go to Michigan week 2. UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, the other cupcakes. Then Mississippi State comes to Austin. All right, easy game. Oklahoma, Red River rivalry. Then Georgia comes to town. Vanderbilt they come to Nashville, so that'll be the first time Texas can take over Nashville as an SEC team. They get Florida at home. They go to Arkansas. They get Kentucky at home. Not necessarily an easy game. And then they go to A&M Thanksgiving weekend. It's not a super easy schedule.
I guess it could be worse, right?
I guess.
You got an LSU in there.
It's a pretty balanced. The way they've done the SEC schedules this season, there is not a team that just has a cupcake walk through their SEC schedule the way that Georgia and did last season.
And then you got that sneaky non-conference game in Michigan.
615-737-1045 is our number. There is one sporting event you should be all the way locked into tonight. An important one going down in Kansas City. I got details for you next. So tonight there is an event you need to be tuned into if you are a sports fan. I've got everything you need to know. It's Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW, 615-737-1045. We are in the doldrums, ladies and gentlemen, of Major League Baseball. The college sports year starts today. Recruiting dead period in college football, college athletics. Guys, we're searching for anything, for something. Well, I'm going to give it to you tonight, 8 o'clock Central Time from Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. The United States take on Uruguay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most consequential games in the recent history of U.S. soccer. This is a game that you should care about because if the U.S. wins this game, they will continue through the Championship of the Americas titled Copa America. The U.S. lost 2-1 to Panama, a big upset loss last week, and they have got to get a result against a very, very big traditional power tonight in Uruguay. I am nervous. I am excited. I am all the things. I will now answer all of your questions. Hit me.
All the things.
Yeah, and that's what people seem to be concerned about, including the F&M Bank chat, is that loss to Panama City, which was considered...
Panama, not Panama City.
Sorry, Panama, which was considered an upset. They're like, well, if they lose to them, how do you think they're going to win against Uruguay?
Yeah, because they won't have somebody punching someone in the back of the head mid-game against Uruguay. So they will not be playing with 10 men. The caveat to this is that in soccer, it's not always the worst team is the easiest one to beat because you have games against sides like Panama who want to frustrate you, who want to sit in a low block, who want to defend, and make them, in the United States, from the Panama perspective, just get around you, right? Uruguay is also going to try to win the game. Panama was trying to not lose the game. So there are differences in this. Sometimes for a team like the United States, it is easier for them to play a side in Uruguay who is going to be more open, more thoughtful, more aggressive on the ball in which the way they attack and defend. And the U.S. is built as a roster to play better against those types of teams than against teams that just want to slide them down, that want to frustrate them, that want to get in their heads and defend. And Panama was able to get in their heads. They got a red card. Tim Weah in the first half. So Marcelo Bielsa, the Uruguay coach, is suspended. This is the 5th time the United States has been invited to play in Copa America. They have one of the best teams in the world. The U.S. is ranked 10th in the world, according to FIFA. And the U.S. has advanced twice ever to the group stage of Copa America, most recently in 2016, the last time they played in the tournament. This game will be exciting. It is being played in a great soccer city. Kansas City is one of the best cities for soccer in the United States. They are a passionate fan base. Arrowhead is going to be rocking. It will be a pro-U.S. crowd, which is not always the case in major metropolitan areas around the United States. The U.S. needs a little bit of help. Bolivia needs to get a good result against Panama for them to still have a shot. But this is one of those things, guys, where the U.S. plays one or two really important games outside of the World Cup every 4 years. And this is the one. This is the biggest non-World Cup game they have played in quite some time.
Is this the equivalent to what's going on in Europe right now?
Yes. This is the America's Championship, similar to the European Championship. So condolences to Lucas Panzica. Italy went out over the weekend to Switzerland.
And you said if they do not get the victory in this, there is a likeliness that they fire Greg Berhalter.
That's correct. Former Columbus Crew head coach who has led the United States through one World Cup now. It is very uncommon for a manager to have success in 2 World Cup cycles. So even when teams win the World Cup, they'll typically hire a new manager for the next one because you don't have a lot of time with these players. You don't get these long training camps and long seasons and practice sessions to implement your system. So you have to have new ideas pretty much every time you make a run of the World Cup. The U.S. currently trying to stick with the same ideas going into the World Cup in 2 years. I would expect a change to be made if the U.S. does not get the job done tonight. So that's what makes it one of the most consequential games in recent history.
So how often does the United States get invited to Copa America?
This is the 5th time ever in a tournament that has been going on for over 100 years.
Okay, so when was the last time?
2016.
Okay, so
it's about once a decade.
So America finally qualifies to get to Copa America, and we're going to boot the guy out if they don't win?
Yep. Well, not win the whole tournament, but they got to get out of the group stage.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
What's the guy got to do? Keep his job.
Get out of the group stage. That's
Yeah, I
exactly
think
what he
he's
has to do to
underachieved
keep his job.
a little bit.
He's not
He's
underachieved
underachieved
as the
overall.
manager. This is I wouldn't even say that. This would be the first time that he would have underachieved. It's just in soccer, if you don't overachieve, you get fired. You can meet expectations, but you're still going to get fired. That's just the way it goes in international soccer.
Hey.
And he's met every expectation. He's been fine. But I think the question is, with a young roster, how much better can it be? I think we're about to find out. I do not expect the U.S. to win tonight, but we will see. They got an easy draw in a group with Uruguay, Panama, and Bolivia. That's a really easy group for Copa America. A lot more difficult than what Canada had to go through, and they advanced yesterday or on Saturday night. So we'll see. Anyway, I'm giving you live sports to watch, people. You can thank me later.
There you go.
This will be a fun one. Going to be a very fun one. 8 o'clock tonight on Fox as the U.S. takes on Uruguay. 615-737-1045. Coming next, though, man, we have friends of the show that always talk about niche sports season. How about some hockey? Coming up next, the NHL draft has come and gone. The Predators still have their first 2 goaltenders. We'll talk about that and the guy that they are linked to in free agency before Titans discussion coming up at 7:20 this morning. 615-737-1045, hour 2 next.
7:01. What's going on? Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NBA and NHL drafts wrapped up over the weekend. Now all attention is pointing to free agency, where quite a few big names have already signed in the NBA. Paul George signing a 4-year, $212 million deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. Philly hoping playoff P can help them get over that playoff hump. James Harden signing a 2-year, $70 million contract to stay with the Clippers, while Chris Paul was waived by the Warriors and signs a 1-year deal with the Spurs. NHL free agency is set to begin at 11. There's no shortage of stars available in free agency, with Sam Reinhart, Steven Stamkos, Elias Lindholm, all of them prominent names that will be on the open market. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Seven a.m. hour number 2 is off and running on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW 104.5 The Zone. Brad Hopkins is in for the Big Ragu, Ramon Foster, who will be back with us tomorrow. Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, I'm Will Bowling. 615-737-1045. A Titans topic coming up for you in just over 15 minutes. Who is the most underrated player on this year's Tennessee Titans roster? We will give you our picks. We invite yours as well on the phone lines and in the F&M Bank chat on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Guys, over the weekend, the NHL draft came and went. The Predators still have their top 2 goaltenders, and a long-term extension of UC Saros was reported last week. But now, Kayla, Yaroslav Askarov, the former number 11 overall pick by the Predators, is the main man in terms of trade talks. Did they make the right decision by not trading him over the weekend?
I think so. And here's the reasoning for that. First of all, I think we all know, at least who cover or kind of have followed the Predators or, are a fan of the Predators, what this guy's ceiling is. And I think people are excited about him, not just because of the player he is, but kind of the personality he brings to, or he has a potential to bring to this team. And now that they've made the move to extend UC Saros, giving him an 8-year extension, that doesn't necessarily mean that UC Saros is going to be here for those full 8 years. But what it shows me is they're going to have him here long enough to kind of usher in a new era of goaltending for the future, whenever that might be. 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, they feel confident that this is the tandem that they want in UC Saros and Askarov. And I think at any point, if you feel like Askarov is going to ascend to that level, there's always the opportunity who he takes over as the primary netminder, and UC Saros could eventually, as he grows older, become the backup. And that's just a process of what happens in the NHL, right? It's a young man's league. But goaltenders also can play in their mid-30s. I mean, we've seen it, right? So I think it's one of those things that they can't lose in this situation. They've got the guy they feel comfortable right now in. And then they got Askarov, who is coming in, has a lot of potential, and at worst right now is going to be their backup goaltender.
It's not like they can't afford to keep both, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. So at this point, 44 games for the Admirals last season for Yaroslav Askarov. Promising numbers. Save percentage was a .911, improved his goals against average from .269 to .239 next season. The reports over the weekend, according to Elliot Friedman, were that Barry Trotz, Preds general manager, was looking for an NHL starter at a different position from goalie or a high-end prospect at this point in the process. Are you taking a bit of a risk in keeping him and potentially even making him the backup? Barry Trotz has been open about that in interviews he's done all across the board, that if Askarov is here and they don't feel like they love the backup goaltending market, Yaroslav Askarov can be their backup as quickly as 2024 at 22 years old.
Yeah.
How much can his value change by exceeding or not living up to expectations in a limited sample size as the number 2 in 2024?
So you're saying him getting on the ice will actually show potential
on NHL ice. That's the thing,
right?
It's because he's only
ice.
played, 2 or 3 games?
Yeah, because he's been in Milwaukee.
So that would show anybody exactly what he can do, right? And then therefore the value being set. So the risk is actually putting him out on an NHL ice and seeing that he's of the bee's knees, he's worth the goods, or he's not. He just simply he's not up to speed.
Yeah, and I find it hard to believe that, you're not going to come out here right away and just awe and amaze people. Maybe you will. I mean, but there's going to be a little bit of, the growth that will still have to happen. It will have to continue as you get to the next level. There's very few players in the NHL who can immediately have an impact. There are some, believe me. But goaltenders, it is a little bit more difficult. Even when you look at Pekarine's, what he was predicted to be. He wasn't even predicted to be what he was. And there was some, development that went into it. They've invested in the goaltending coaches here. There's some really good goaltending, coaches around them to help get these guys to the next level. UC obviously is at that level. Could still probably use some work when it comes to maybe the full body of work from start to finish. But this is exciting for Askarov. I think he's in the perfect situation. And you have to get him up there at some point. You have to throw him on the ice. Yeah. You have to throw him to the Wolves at some point, right? He's got all this potential. At some point, we've got to see if he can use it at the next level. And you're right. Yeah, maybe you're gambling a little bit, but I think it's more going to be a plus in the long run for the Predators.
It's interesting because we will get the specifics as the UC Saros contract becomes official of maybe what that no trade clause looks like. But I see this the way you sign a starting pitcher to a long-term contract, and that contractual control adds to their value at the trade deadline. I think Yaroslav Askarov as the number 2 netminder for the Preds this season is a really good thing because at that point, if you need to be a seller, all right, Askarov, you're the guy, and Saros, you can immediately ship off. I think it would be maybe unrealistic to assume they're going to trade a guy 1 year into an 8-year deal. I doubt that that's the case in 2024, but if Askarov can prove himself and you feel like you're in position to add, there are always teams that need goaltending at the trade deadline in the National Hockey League.
Sure.
Always.
And they're willing to give you what you paid for Saros?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So at that point, whoever is a contending team that needs goaltending help, you can flip Askarov at that point at his highest value. You're taking a bit of a risk, though, because if he comes in and he stinks at 22 years of age, you're going to have to wait to get that short-term, I need a goaltender right now to get me to the postseason kind of team. That may not be the kind of team that is interested in Askarov if he's not good this season. Mm-hmm. However, there are always teams that need goaltending. And I think Barry Trotz made the right decision by not making that move now and letting teams get a bit more desperate as they go into the season. Going to be interesting to follow, though, the opening day of NHL free agency today, and Steven Stamkos is a guy that has been linked to the Nashville Predators. Elliot Friedman writing that my money's on Nashville. Mm-hmm. He says, no wagering on anything I say, please, but a lot of suitors are putting on their cufflinks in this dating game. I love that. The Tampa Bay Lightning were very busy yesterday. They gave a third-round pick in 2025 to the Hurricanes to acquire the rights to Jake Gensel. They also got rid of the big contract of former Pred Tanner Jeannot. But it looks like, from all intents and purposes, they are lining up an opportunity to get Gensel. And this would be one of the biggest moves in Nashville Predators history if they are able to get a guy that has scored 555 career goals over 16 seasons in Tampa. Steven
Stamkos knows nothing but the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was drafted there. He was the first overall pick there. He has done nothing but be a superstar for them. He's been their captain. He's led them to Stanley Cup trophies. He has been that guy, right, in the league that has helped his team find success. And now he's at the point, which I think is funny because they recently had Tampa Bay's Ryan McDonough who is also known defensively as one of those veteran guys who came over here from Tampa Bay, now went back to Tampa Bay, after this season. And now you could be possibly getting Steven Stamkos on the offensive side, a center who could really bring some second line scoring, which is something that the Predators really need. You saw the first line just find a lot of success last year with Philip Forsberg, centering the way there in one of his best seasons he's ever had. But the second line scoring was a bit of an issue, and I think that's where you could find success with Stamkos there. And yes, he's 34, but he has still been able to produce. And I will say this, why I also think the Predators have a little bit of an upper hand. With any team, when you trade, you have your ins with certain teams. And the Preds and Tampa Bay do business together. And that's been kind of a known fact in the last several years. So I feel like they could also be the favorite for that reason.
Very similar markets.
Yeah.
Both Tampa and Nashville, of course, but kind of reminds me of what you just talked about with soccer, the offensive pace that the Preds play at, kind of attacking, getting after it.
Yeah, very aggressive.
That's what Stamkos is kind of known for, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of similarities in his game style and what Barry Trotz would like to do. Mm-hmm. And, of course, it would bring another name brand to Middle Tennessee. How awesome is that?
Bob McKenzie at TSN just a couple of minutes ago wrote on Twitter that among the many suitors still pitching to Steven Stamkos and his agent Don Meehan, the Predators, the Anaheim Ducks, Carolina Hurricanes, Detroit Red Wings, and New Jersey Devils. He adds, it is a fluid situation and others are involved as well. 15 minutes ago saying that he expects Jake Gensel with Tampa to get the biggest deal of the day at $9 million a year. Again, that's a third-string point guard in the NBA.
Yeah,
that's right. A star player of the NHL.
Those numbers are wild. Also, think about it. It always comes in the no tax thing. They don't have it in Florida. Don't have it in Tennessee.
Yep.
615-737-1045 is our number. Who is the most underrated player on the Tennessee Titans roster? We will answer that for you next. Hey, it's Will Bowling. Is your water heater not heating? Maybe your sink is leaking, the drain is clogged. Well, available 24/7, 365. Our expert friends at Lee Company have you covered for all of your plumbing needs. And they mean it when they say 24/7, 365. Right now, you can enjoy $20 off a plumbing service call for a limited time. Just remember this phone number, 615-567-1000. That's where you contact Lee Company, or you go online to leecompany.com for an appointment to take care of your home's plumbing from top to bottom. Again, that's $20 off on your next service call when you trust the pros over at Lee Company. Look, when something goes wrong in your house, it's always at the most inconvenient time. 24/7, 365, Lee Company will be there to help you. They got 80 years of experience helping out folks here in Middle Tennessee, and they do business the right way. 615-567-1000, online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need. Started off a brand new week and a brand new month this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. 615-737-1045 is how you join Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, and myself, Will Bowling. Ramon will be back in tomorrow. We'll have to all wear name tags so he remembers who we are.
Right?
On that
He might have to
presidential
wear
vacation plan. That's right.
He misses you guys. You can tell by him jumping in on the F&M Bank chat.
He's been in there
every now
every
and
day.
then.
I'm
Exactly.
like, did you actually take a vacation
Exactly.
or were you here?
Just
every day?
call in. You should just call in
He
or
should have.
something. I know he's on the road doing his familial stuff, right? Being a great
Baseball.
dad that he actually is. But still, man, you can zoom. You can zoom in. Will did it.
I did.
You did.
Who is the most underrated player on the Tennessee Titans roster in 2024? That is the question we ask you in the F&M Bank chat, YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, or Twitch, and as well on the phone lines at 615-737-1045. Brad Hopkins, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay, so just follow me on this one, okay?
Okay.
If you'd have told me that Kenneth Murray going into the year that he's going into only would have 6 sacks on the career when I watched this kid play at Oklahoma, and you know what I'm talking about, Kayla,
Yep.
I'd have said you're a liar.
Mm-hmm.
Where has been the disconnect? And I've seen some pretty poor games by a very talented player. And I'm just wondering, has he been hurt? You know, all this other stuff. Now, for value's sake, the number that we got him at makes sense for what we've seen for him so far in his career, okay? Just smaller sample size. He's only been in the league for a few years, but yet and still, I thought he has a lot of potential. Maybe this is the spot. Maybe Denard Wilson is the guy to unlock who Kenneth Murray can be. So I'm going to say he's underrated because he shouldn't be on anybody's radar at this point. He hasn't played that well, consistently anyway. So put it this way. I know he's underrated because no one's thinking about Kenneth Murray.
Sure.
So I'm going to say Kenneth Murray is probably the most underrated, at least starter right now that's slated.
To that point, Denard Wilson, when talking to the media earlier this offseason, wrote about or said, football, it's not about scheme, it's about the players. We have to figure out what they do well, and then we'll put the scheme around them to allow their talents to flourish. We're going to be an attacking defense, he said at his introductory press conference in February. We are going to be violent in our approach. We are going to be smart. We're going to be intelligent. We are never going to compromise for competing. That is the style of brand of football we're going to play around here. That does seem like the right system for an athletic freak whose problems come when he thinks too much. In the Titans' new inside linebacker, Kenneth Murray.
Just pin your ears back, bro. Get after it.
How many players like that did you play with who you just felt like were just athletic specimens who were thinking too much?
All the time. There are probably, because you see the averages of careers that players actually have in the National Football League, there's more of those guys that you're mentioning, Will, than the ones that actually figure it out.
Sure.
There's that much turnover because that is the difference. A guy that has figured it out from one year to the next and continues to reinvent himself and stay ahead of the curve, he plays a long time in the National Football League. But obviously, by the averages that we're talking about careers in the league, that doesn't happen very often. So if you can unlock what it is that Kenneth Murray does, and that's the biggest difference. You want players to go out there and just react to what their training tells them to do. You don't want them thinking about those situations and what should they be doing. They should just react to it because they're so used to seeing it. Well, that's what maybe Denard's talking about. Allowing those players to stop being hesitant and thinking less about what that responsibility is and just reading their keys, trusting their keys, and arriving in those moments.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those situations where we are not talking as much about him. True, because we didn't mention him a lot in the weeks where we had OTAs and mandatory minicamp. We were more so talking about the rookie in Cedric Gray. But it is a move that I feel people are a little bit weary about, and rightfully so. This is a first-round draft pick, like you said, coming out of Oklahoma, that had all the traits and everything it took to possibly be a really high-caliber linebacker in the NFL, and you just haven't seen it. And a lot of people think because they misused him in San Diego, now LA.
All right.
And I think that's fair, too, to have a little bit of skepticism on both ends, because you are saying, well, they brought him here for a reason. They think that they can mold him into being his best him. And not only do you have Denard Wilson, but you have his specific linebackers coach in Frank Bush, who has been known for really helping develop players and get the most out of players at that position. And so they look at those types of things and think, hey, we really think this paired with this could be something. So I do trust that they are going to be able to, bring out the best Kenneth Murray, but it is a gamble. And they don't have as much proven talent at the linebacker position right now. There's a lot of untapped potential, but there's not a lot of solid, we know who he is.
Right.
And I think that's what you get scared about at the linebacker position right now.
I think Titans fans would be fine with Kenneth Murray as an experiment if they'd also added another inside linebacker, right?
Right.
And Cedric Gray is another inside linebacker.
Right.
But he's a rookie.
I think adding 2 free agents would have made fans feel better about, hey, we've got this athletic freak over here whose relative athletic score and combine numbers and testing is off the charts. But they are really gambling on Frank Bush to turn Kenneth Murray into a more polished inside linebacker. And Kayla brings up a good point. For as much as we talk about Bill Callahan and his wisdom with the offensive line, Coach Mack has told us before on this show that Frank Bush is to linebackers as Bill Callahan is to offensive linemen. That guy is as good of a linebackers coach as there is in the National Football League.
And I know that firsthand.
Absolutely.
He was a guy setting the defense for our offense to get a good look when I came into the National Football League. Okay? And the way that he was an assistant to the assistants there, the players respected him because, one, he was a guy that actually whose career was cut short because of a potential back injury. Okay? He played the game. And the way that he coached it was no nonsense even then. If you were a guy that wasn't going to see Sunday, your day was pretty much during the week, right?
Sure.
Sometimes you can kind of get loose, and because you're just a practice squad guy, or you're on the bench most of the time, whatever else. Frank made sure that those guys were professional. Now imagine what he's doing with guys that are actually on the field on Sundays. Love that guy to death. Tremendous person, and coaches up the right way. So that's what Coach Mack was talking about. Was so spot on. It's not even funny. We're not talking about that enough, about Frank Bush's development of the interior of the defense, because that's exactly what he's tasked with doing. It's Denard Wilson's philosophy, the scheme, getting everybody moving, right? But it's guys, assistants like Bill, and like, of course, in this situation, Frank Bush, that really, really make a difference.
Kayla, most underrated Titan, who you got?
Harold Landry. I think that it's easy for people to forget about Harold Landry a little bit because of the missed 2022 season and the kind of inconsistency to at least start 2023. But then he started to feel confident in himself again. He started to not think about the ACL. And midway through the season, you start to see the old Harold Landry traits come back into play. And he finished the season with 10.5 sacks. He started to, like I said, build that confidence back. And it was hard to see at times because it was just such a season filled with question marks so much on the offensive side that, sometimes some of these players defensively, they just weren't getting looked at as much in terms of what they were doing on an individual level. We talked about Danico Autry a lot last year. And really what he was able to do at that age. But I still don't think Harold Landry got as much attention as he should have in terms of what he started to develop into later on in the season. And this year, my goodness, we barely talked about him at OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Let me tell you something, folks. Harold looks good. Like his body looks good. Like he looks good. You can tell he's got the full confidence back. He ain't thinking about that ACL. He ain't thinking about that knee. Harold does things quietly. That's who Harold is as a person. He's a more quiet person. He's a more reserved person. But when he gets on that field, the real Harold gets unleashed. And I am telling y'all this year, I think we're going to see some nastiness, that bend again that we love to see from Harold. We're going to see the old Harold back. And it's going to help this team, considering we still are learning if Arden can be a 3-down guy. But I think Harold Landry is going to have a really big year.
And he closed very well from that 3-sack performance against the Miami Dolphins in Week 14. In the last 5 weeks of the season, Harold Landry had 5 sacks this past season. Obviously, the 16-sack year in 2021, still his career high, but I completely agree with you. I don't know why people undersell him so much, because Harold Landry has met expectations for what we thought he was going to be in his career as a Tennessee Titan. He earned the second contract. He is the success story of a John Robinson draft pick that got a second deal, stuck around, and didn't immediately fall off a cliff. And to me, if T'Vondre Sweat is a dude, if Jeffrey Simmons can give you a healthy season, Harold Landry benefits more than anybody from those two monsters being in the interior.
1,000%. Denard Wilson talked about plugging those B gaps being an effective measure defensively. And not only does that stop a team from being able to run on you, that creates those one-on-one situations that Harold Landry should be able to and is very capable of winning. Mm-hmm. And that's all he wants you to do, win the one-on-ones. And with Harold Landry matched up against guys by himself, maybe even getting, freed up on a line on a running back or two, I'd take Harold Landry every single time, because guess what? You got to have 4 hands on those 3 techniques. Those big bodies can move. And if you put it this way, go ahead and try and not do it. Try and do the single. Try and not double team Jeffrey Simmons and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too, you're going to have corners that can be up in somebody's face and not immediately get beat
in your kitchen.
That is where the rush and coverage, I think, works together. The coverage is better. The rush should be better. You have more time to get to the quarterback.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Disrupting the routes, messing up the timing. That's all I want to do. I want to be able to press you. I want to keep you on the line of scrimmage or for the 5 yards, make sure that route is disrupted, make you hold on to that football just a pinch longer. Mm-hmm. And if you need to step up into your throw, you can't, because Big Jeff and T'Vondre
right there
are back there. And if you try and hang around the edges, then guess what? There's your boy, Kayla.
Yep, Harold.
It's interesting. I think the Titans' edge rushing group is so thin that a lot of the issues fans have with that unit specifically are less about the players in the room and more about the players who aren't in the room, right?
Sure.
And just the lack of help. And it does look like Denard Wilson and this defense is going to philosophically be similar to Mike Vrabel in that you're not going to carry this just stable of edge rushers the way Buffalo does, where you've got 7 or 8 guys on any given week who can be up, who can rush the quarterback. You're going to have a smaller rotation. You're going to have Harold Landry play a lot of snaps. And that, at this point of his career, I think is the challenge for him, is can he continue to play the large percentage of snaps? What is that number to where the production is at its highest efficiency level, where you don't have that law of diminishing returns, where you play 90% of snaps versus 85, you hurt that production. It's always the challenge with Landry. For me, I'm going to stick on defense as well for my most underrated Titan. I think it's Roger McCreary. Yeah. Because I think now going into 2024, we can finally see a defense that includes Roger McCreary in his best position. I don't think we've seen that at all in his first 2 seasons as a Tennessee Titan, because there is depth, because there is L'Jarius Sneed, because there is Chidobe Awuzie, because, heck, there's Jarvis Brownlee and Gabe Judy Lally even potentially. At this point of the process and building the Titans secondary, Roger McCreary can be a nickel corner and nothing else. And if somebody gets hurt in that secondary, if L'Jarius Sneed can't go, if something happens to Chidobe Awuzie, I would rather the Titans go to one of their other backups than to move McCreary back to outside corner. Doug Farrar, a touchdown writer, wrote about this, about McCreary, saying he was aligned in press coverage at a team-high 138 of his 946 snaps last season. And Doug Farrar writes, and I agree with him, you can expect that number to double in 2024. When in press coverage last season, guys, Roger McCreary allowed 8 catches on 15 targets for 5.3 yards per reception, 1 explosive play, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. This defense fits Roger McCreary. I think the way that Denard Wilson wants his corners to play fits the best of Roger McCreary, who now, as an undersized corner, can be matched up against smaller wide receivers in the slot.
Mm-hmm. I love everything about that because Roger has been everything advertised that he can be, right? You're talking about the usage. And he's a lot of times had to be the guy that's had to step up because there's been so many injuries to that position. And now maybe he can flourish in this spot because one thing that I know about Roger McCreary, he's about one of the most damn durable guys that you'll ever meet. He was so mad last year that he had to miss 2 games. And the first 2 games he's missed since like his high school career. I mean, this guy is like, does not miss a game because a lot of times he's playing through stuff, right? That's his mentality. He does go quietly, right? He goes kind of behind the main guys a lot in terms of the names, and you're not talking about Roger McCreary a lot. But that guy is always on the field. He's always there. He is going to be a durable piece for you, and that's what I love because now you can put him in a really advantageous spot, and he's going to probably be there, right? He's going to be able to play. And so that's what I love about McCreary too is, man, this guy will play through anything. He's got that tough-minded mentality, and he doesn't have to be the center of attention, which sometimes is a breath of fresh air.
Especially in the corner.
Yeah.
You know, if I had a 1B, Kayla, I would probably say the entire running back room.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You know, neither one of these dudes have basically stood on their own shoulders. And think about this. They're replacing a legacy of running backs. You know, we've been known, our identity was running the football with some very talented guys going all the way back to EG. And you've got a couple of guys in here now that are not very much mentioned when you have the receiving core that the Tennessee Titans have amassed this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good point, and I think it's interesting because if we were doing this topic based off nationally, who is underappreciated the most on this roster, I think the answer is overwhelmingly Tajay Spears.
Yep.
Because I don't think people around the league are understanding how good that guy is going to be this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people will learn how much of a household name Tajay Spears is here. I think locally, we get it. And especially local media, people that talk about the Titans, I think we see it a lot. And our fans in Nashville understand how good Tajay Spears is. I don't think the rest of the league has any clue.
By the way,
I'm going to tell you this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, even if Tony Pollard were to have gone to another team, do you know how much more they'd be talking about Tony Pollard on that team?
Just the way it goes.
That's what I'm saying,
Hold on a second. I actually signed some of Tony Pollard's cousins some autographs when we were down in Memphis. They're very excited about him being back in the state of Tennessee.
Memphis kid.
Mm-hmm. You know Tony Pollard? Yeah. Newly acquired running back. That's my cousin.
That's awesome.
Okay, I'll tell him you say hello.
No biggie. It's just my cousin.
Yeah.
You know.
615-737-1045. You can give us your most underrated Tennessee Titan. And coming up next, Brad Hopkins, who is the most underappreciated Titan that you played with as a member of this franchise? We'll get his answer next. RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will continues on 104.5 The Zone and on your favorite podcast feed anytime, any day. Apple Podcasts and Spotify, the best two places to find RKW. Every hour of every show. Hit the subscribe button while you are there and never miss a minute of our Titans discussions and much, much more. 615-737-1045. Brad Hopkins, who was the most underappreciated Tennessee Titan that you had the privilege of sharing the field with?
So this player, he kind of came to us with some cachet. We kind of knew that he could be a really good guy in the NFL. He was a first-round pick going back to the 1997 draft. He was the 18th player taken out of the University of Miami, and that'd be one Kenny Holmes.
Okay. Why was he the most underappreciated?
Because for what he was actually able to do and him getting basically, if we didn't get Javon Curse and him turn out to be the phenom that he actually was, we'd still be talking about Kenny Holmes. Because Kenny Holmes came up with those big plays and was a huge part, a huge catalyst for the success of that defense after we drafted him. And we didn't talk about it a whole lot. Kenny Holmes wasn't a household name, especially for what he meant coming off the edge for that defense. And this was one that I actually, obviously went to the Super Bowl because he was on that team.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Kenny Holmes was a beast. And I just remember watching his, and he was an undersized guy, Kayla.
How big?
He's 6'4", 265.
Okay.
It's actually a big guy, because that's what I'm at now, right?
Yeah, I was going to say 6'4", 265 for an edge is pretty big.
I started thinking about that. But, compared to like Kevin Carter.
Compared to you.
You see what I'm saying? So, but just his ability and the way he took on you had to double team. Put it this way, Kenny got more chips coming out of the backfield than you could imagine. You know what I mean? Backs that need to put a shoulder pad on that guy to make sure they slow down his rush.
Sure.
For against tackles. He got a lot of those. And that's only because he was a great player. You know what I mean? So someone that just kind of was unmentioned a lot and really won a lot of battles on the football field and made a lot of plays for us. Got off the field on third down on so many situations, especially when it's third and whatever. That cat, man, he got after it. And I just loved him as a person because he played the game like you talked about Roger McCreary. Walk, speak softly, carry a big stick. That's exactly who he was. He didn't talk a whole bunch. You weren't going to be bumping the gums, getting into it with a guy across the line of scrimmage. He was just going to put his hand in the dirt and whoop you every single time.
You got to respect that.
Loved it.
Yeah, Kenny Holmes played 7 seasons in the NFL, 97 to 03. Was with the Titans for 4 of those seasons before finishing his career as a New York Giant and had a career-high 8 sacks for the Titans in that 2000 season. In fact, when Javon Curse got in the mix, he had 2 interceptions in 1999 for the Titans. A couple of defensive touchdowns as well. It's a good pick. It's not one I would have expected.
Here's something funny.
Kenny Holmes.
So I played against him when we went up to Meadowlands.
Yeah,
when he was with the Giants, and I hated it because I had to play the game turning a switch on, right? And it wasn't nice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to have to do that to Kenny,
to him?
you know what I mean? That's the guy I loved, man. I just hated being aggressive with him like that, but then again, it wasn't like, I wouldn't try to tear his head off like I would normally do. But, it was just different playing against a guy I had so much respect for.
I think that would be the hardest part of any sport at the professional level when you've played with a guy or you just have history with a guy or gal. And you have to go up against them and actually turn on your alter ego. But it is so hard to do, like you said, when you have so much respect for somebody and you did play with them on your particular team. I think that is probably something that just takes another level to switch that gear.
So, what was that like, just talking with guys that you had played with and going up against your former teammates? Did that ever get awkward between plays?
Every time.
Yeah.
When Kevin Carter left us and went to Miami and we played them the next year, it's like, oh my God, how do I describe it? Okay, when we first got Kevin, when he came to us from the Rams, he was on the right side. He rushed against John in the Super Bowl, right? So that's where he pretty much lived, on that right side. I didn't really see him a whole bunch. He didn't come over there. And we just had a healthy amount of respect for each other. A couple of Pro Bowlers, a couple of All-Pro guys, playing against one. And I remember one time in practice, Jim Washburn moved him over to my side, okay, in one-on-ones. And it was a buzz. Everybody just went, ooh, like that, just kind of. So now everybody's really paying attention to this rep that we're about to do, right? So the ball snaps. I get out of my stance before Kevin does. I don't give Kevin anywhere to go, but right down the middle of me, right? And he hit me just perfectly and knocked me on my ass, Kayla. And nobody said a word because it was like, because that just it didn't happen to me. It didn't happen to me, right? It didn't happen to me. So I got up. I said, okay, that's cool. And now Kevin was actually shocked that he actually got me like that, right? So now comes rep number 2. As soon as that ball was snapped, I was on him like a spider monkey. I jumped off that dang line of scrimmage and jumped into his crawl so he couldn't get momentum built up to run me over, right? And then we just stood there at the line of scrimmage after we battled for a second. That was like a draw right there between the 2 reps. But it only happened that one time.
Yeah.
So now he goes to Miami, and, we're in a game together, Let's just say there's a lot of brother-in-law going on there. You know what I mean? Got a lot of grunting going on.
In the trenches.
615-737-1045 as we begin hour 3. Coming up next, there was a report over the weekend that Tony Vitello was in high demand from a couple of different baseball programs. We will give you the conclusion to that story and what Brett Hubbs told us about it if you missed that last Friday, coming up next.
What's going on? 8 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NBA and NHL drafts wrapped up over the weekend. Now all attention is on free agency with quite a few big names still left to decide where they will play in 2024. Paul George signing a 4-year, $212 million with the Philadelphia 76ers, hoping Playoff P can get them over the playoff hump. James Harden signing a 2-year, $70 million contract to stay with the Clippers, while Chris Paul was waived, now signing a 1-year deal with the Spurs. NHL free agency set to begin today at 11. There's no shortage of stars available in free agency. Steven Stamkos and Elias Lindholm among the most prominent names that'll be on the open market for all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs. Visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your own for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second half of the show rolling right along on a brand new, hot and fresh Ramon, Kayla, and Will. A short work week for us and many of you. The 1st of July, 615-737-1045 is how you jump into the discussion. We've got Brad Hopkins filling in for Ramon Foster again this morning. Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh. I'm Will Bowling, and coming up in 20 minutes, we will be joined by Teresa Walker of the Associated Press. We'll ask her if it was the right decision for the Nashville Predators to hand UC Saros an 8-year extension. Per reports, she will join us coming up in just a few minutes. Guys, over the weekend, Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball writes that Texas A&M was calling up the coach that just beat them in the national championship. Writing, A&M made a very furious run, parentheses, $2 signs, for Tony Vitello. A&M shot its shot, but Tony stayed put and loyal to a program that has given him the keys to the castle. This was VolQuest's Brent Hubbs with us on Friday when we asked him how imminent a contract extension is for the Tennessee head coach.
Well, I mean, it's going to get done. It's just, and it was done in principle before they won the national championship. And if I were an agent and I were Tony's agent, I would have reminded Danny White, hey, the last head coaching contract you wrote, you put a clause in there that said, if your coach wins the national title, and that's Kim Caldwell, she's the highest paid coach in her sport. Well, my guy just won it, so let's make him the highest paid coach in the sport. And so that's where they're at. They're just trying to hammer out the final details. I don't think Tony Vitello is worried about it. He and Josh Elander are at the Cape Cod League right now evaluating talent, transfer portal talent, and other junior college talent and guys out there. They're awaiting the draft to see what's going to happen with their potential returning players and their incoming signees. And it's business as usual for Tony Vitello while his agent works on a new deal. And it'll get done. You know, how quickly Tennessee's trying to get it done really quickly, and I think they're close. So maybe next week at some point that'll get announced. But I don't think anybody at Tennessee or in Vitello's camp is worried about Tony leaving at this point. And they're out working their roster, and Danny White's going to write a big check, a big one, a really big one.
Guys, if I asked at an over-under of 9.5 years, is Tony Vitello in a decade still the Tennessee baseball coach?
It's so hard, Will, because I want to immediately say yes with what they have given him up to this point. And you're seeing the expansion of Lindsey Nelson Stadium. You're seeing the success he's finding. The only reason why I would even think about going under is because of the ever-changing landscape of college sports. And, you know, in terms of NIL and conferences and all of that stuff, like, I don't honestly know year to year what it's going to look like in college sports. I mean, I'm not trying to exaggerate here. I really don't. And if anything, I feel like the SEC is definitely the most stable conference, but that doesn't mean that you can't lose coaches. So I'm going to stick with probably he'd be there in a decade, but there are questions just because of the landscape of college sports that he might be on the move sooner than that. And he could go to the MLB.
I'll take the over. And the reason why I take the over is, well, first off, the Texas shooting its shot at Tony V to be their coach.
A&M,
excuse me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Replacing Jim Schlossnagle, who is now at Texas. Sorry about that. Closed mouths don't get fed, right? So they have to ask the question. There's no way in the world I thought, in their heart of hearts, that they thought that Tony Vitello was going to take the job. But I got to ask you, why not?
Well, sure.
Let's see what happens. Now, for Tony V, I think in the length of his career here or his tenure here, he has some pretty big examples right in his own conference of guys that have coached at a high level for a long time in their respective schools. Kevin O'Sullivan, Tim Corbin.
Yep.
They haven't thought about going anywhere, and they've created legacies where they are. Okay? And I think that he wants to be considered amongst those guys, not only by even the pay scale of which his agent's talking about, because Tim Corbin is the highest paid guy. Let me make more than Tim, because I won a national championship today.
Yeah.
He hasn't won one in a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
But also, I think the relationship between he and Danny White will tell a lot about how long Tony V would want to stick around. It's not about the kids that he's recruiting that keeps coming in year in and year out, right? It's about his relationship with the guys that he works with. Outside of that, the players are going to come and go. He understands the style of guy that he likes to coach and would recruit and blah, blah, blah. He's going to be able to be that guy all the time.
Sure.
But like we've seen at A&M itself, why did Schlossnagle leave? It wasn't because of the school or the kids he was coaching. It was because of his relationship with the AD.
And the lack of ballpark renovations that he wanted a Bluebell Park that he could not get from administration.
And that's another thing. All the resources at Lindsey Nelson. All the resources at Rocky Top.
Right.
And one of the better programs that
They're
you're
all on
going
the
to
same page.
You see what I'm saying, though? So where any move would be lateral.
Well, and I think the only thing, though, is like I mentioned, I don't know Tony V's long-term goals, right? We know Tony V as he is now as a coach, and he's a young coach. That's the other thing you have to think of. As you continue to develop in your own career, as a player, as a coach, whatever it is, everybody has different goals. Some like to evolve. Some like to think this is where I'm going to be. I'm only going to coach at the college level. That's how Tim Corbin was. He decided this is what I needed to be, but he was a little bit older than Tony when he took over at Vanderbilt. Does Tony Vitello have dreams of one day, going back to St. Louis and being a manager for the Cardinals? Like, I'm legitimately wondering, is this something that is on his timeline in a short, I don't think it would be anything short of 10 years, but 10 years and beyond, maybe.
I think in a decade, Tony Vitello is still coaching. I think this guy was made as a human being to be a college baseball coach and to be the college baseball coach at Tennessee. And it is rare that you get a scenario like Tennessee has in baseball where the personality of the head coach so perfectly fits the personality of the fan base. It's like Tony Vitello grew up a Vols fan. The way that he acts, the way that he carries himself, the way that he speaks. Heck, even in the parade where he's talking to fans saying, whether we're down a touchdown in Neyland Stadium or you're watching the softball team, you're either a Vol or you're not. So get on board. The guy, in my opinion, is going to be at Tennessee for 15 years. I mean, he's already halfway there. This will be year 8 next season after he just finished his 7th season here with the national championship. But when you build in college athletics a stadium in the image that a head coach wants, that head coach sticks around for a while. It's why Nate Oates will be tied to Alabama basketball as soon as they bring as big a wrecking ball as they can to Coleman Coliseum and build him a brand new arena. It is why Bruce Pearl is incentivized to stay at Auburn, because Auburn basketball hired Bruce Pearl right after they opened Neville Arena. When you give someone like that a brand new shining facility, they are very incentivized to stick around. Not only is this a brand new shiny facility, Tony Vitello has helped design this facility exactly in the way that he wants it. I don't think he is going anywhere anytime soon. So good news for Tennessee fans that he was not interested in Texas A&M. No doubt about it. Danny White would have a mutiny on his hands if Tony Vitello left for somewhere else.
Yeah, and if anything, that would not be the place to go right now. They're already like hemorrhaging players. So
well, it sounds like they're all coming back because they kept their assistant coach as their new head coach. So
but their main guy isn't.
Laviolette?
Yeah.
The report is that most all of them are going to come back out of the portal and stay at A&M.
Be interesting.
I think Jace Laviolette may end up staying in Aggie.
Wow.
We'll see.
I don't even know that the pro game would be attractive to Tony V.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, that's what I don't think that that's a good.
And priorities can change as you age, of course. But I completely agree. The guy did not have a Major League Baseball career, but he had a long trip through college baseball and also was a college assistant for a while.
Yeah, that's the Barry Switzer to the Cowboys feel to me.
100%. 100%. And I think a lot of the antics that he has, I mean that lovingly. I mean that in a positive because his antics are working, clearly.
I'm about to say, okay, Greg.
They work better in college baseball than they do with major leaguers.
Yeah.
With major league umpires.
There's been some managers like that, though.
Not a lot of successful ones. I mean, Ollie Marmol is the head coach of the Cardinals right now. Younger guy. He's not a lot of Cardinals fans like him as their manager.
Yeah.
Interesting. Baseball is such an interesting world in that way.
And it's ever evolving. That's the other thing.
It is.
It's ever evolving.
615-737-1045. The Associated Press's Teresa Walker joins us coming up next. We'll talk a little bit of Predators. We could ask her for her most underrated Tennessee Titan. We'll take it anywhere with Teresa when we come back on 1045 The Zone.
This is your off-the-track racing report, brought to you by State Water Heaters.
Making a record. It took a record 5 overtime restarts to complete Sunday's Ally 400 at Nashville Superspeedway. But two-time series champion Joey Logano endured to win the race. It is his first win of the season, and it automatically qualified him for the playoffs. The race had 31 extra laps and 15 total cautions. It was also stopped for a 1 hour, 21-minute rain and lightning delay. Because of the extra laps, several of the race contenders dropped out of contention because of being short on fuel. For Logano, he gambled and won by going 110 laps on his final tank of fuel. He barely had enough fuel to do a celebratory burnout. The Cup Series heads to the streets of Chicago for Sunday's Grant Park 165. Broadcast start is set for 3:30 on NBC.
This has been your off-the-track racing report, brought to you by State Water Heaters. I'm Liz Allison. If there's anything that I don't like, it's not having enough hot water. That was me way too often until I switched to a State brand tankless water heater. Not only do I never run out of hot water, but I'm saving on my utility bill every month. State Water Heaters makes gas and electric, standard efficiency to high efficiency water heaters, and of course, my personal favorite, tankless water heaters, where the hot water never runs out. Visit statewaterheaters.com and click on the Find a Local Installer link on the main page, and you'll be on your way to owning your very own State brand water heater, just like me.
Rolling right along in hour number 3 this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW with Brad Hopkins filling in for Ramon. And Kayla Anderson, I am Will Bowling, joined this morning by the Associated Press's Teresa Walker. We can always take it anywhere. We catch up with Teresa. Titans, a little bit of Preds, and a little bit more. Good morning, Teresa. How are you?
Good morning, and that song is appropriate because, well, it was the fast lane for me yesterday. Until I swear, guys, I have covered a lot of races. I've covered a lot of stuff, but 5 overtimes, the race that would never end. It's like I was just praying, please, God, green, white, checkered. No, somebody. I mean, guys are running out of gas. I've never seen such a finish. So I hope that people watch that because that was just insane at the super speedway yesterday.
I have been to a couple of 5 overtime Tennessee football games. The 2003 Tennessee-Alabama win, that was 4 overtimes. You had a Kentucky one for Ramon to win the SEC East that he would be just bloviating about if he was here. But it's a lot of overtimes, Teresa, no doubt about it. Teresa, real quick, before we get to some of the Preds discussion, do you want to tell the people where you are? You are on the road traveling this morning.
T.
I am on the road to North Carolina, the National Sports Media Association's annual awards. I'll be joining the likes of Mike Keith, who is the Tennessee Sportscaster of the Year. I've lost track of how many times the bot has won that. Mm-hmm. And I will be picking up my one for the thumb as Tennessee Sports Writer of the Year. So
outstanding.
Nice. Woohoo!
Fantastic. Well-deserved, Teresa.
Absolutely well-deserved.
Thank you.
And Teresa,
I am
also,
very proud that
I was going to say, you have your outfit picked out, too.
I do. I have the dress is in the back, and it's going to be live stream. I'll share the link on social later tonight, and so tune in. But I'll say this. In a state that has produced the likes of Fred Russell, Ben Bird, David Clymer, to be the one woman who's won it on the sports writer side, Dawn Davenport is the female on the sportscaster side for Tennessee. I'm very glad to be making this trip over.
Nice.
To say that
That's awesome.
To say that I've known you, Teresa, and that you and I have been doing work together for 25 years is amazing. Mm-hmm. And I expect no less.
We haven't aged a bit.
No.
That's right.
Oh, you and I still remember our days at the old Bellevue Mall doing interviews and stuff. We first got here, Teresa. Congratulations. Very well deserved.
Thank you very much, Brad.
All right, Teresa, let's talk first about the local professional hockey team. The Nashville Predators have reportedly agreed to an 8-year deal to extend UC Saros. What was your initial reaction? Right move for the Preds?
Feels like a long deal to me. That money, I mean, I guess that's what you're going to have to pay a goalie. I'll say this. I know that Barry Trotz is all in. I like Saros, but he's going to have to show that he can win some playoff games and a series. Guys, he's yet to notch a playoff series win as a victory as a goalie. I mean, the year that he might have, he missed that playoff series because of an ankle injury that, he would not, they'd have had to make the cup final for him to have a chance to come back. I'm just a little curious. They brought back Mitch Korn to the organization, I thought, to work with Askarov. And, so at this point, I am very, very curious to see what Barry Trotz does. It feels like he's trying to win now, and maybe Mitch Korn can do his goalie whispering and help Saros be Saros for the whole season, avoid the slow starts and avoid the dips and win a series and help them. I mean, you look at that playoff series they lost this year, total 1 goal was the deciding factor. They coulda, shoulda. But it just feels like a bit much. I'm sorry, 5'9". I don't see Pecorine when I see UC Saros. He can be amazing, but Askarov has got what UC doesn't, and that is he's 6'3", and that can be a big difference in that. So I'm going to need to see this move pay off for the Predators, just personally.
Mm-hmm.
She is AP writer extraordinaire, covering everything in Middle Tennessee. Teresa Walker joining us here on the show. And you know what? Take us into the mind of Saros himself, Teresa. How does he feel about an 8-year deal here in Tennessee? Is this a place that he can, start thinking about settling roots, or is this maybe some situation that he might think is transitional? How do you think he's thinking about the move that the Preds made to sign him to a long-term deal?
Well, if I'm used, I'm saying they believe in me. They want me to win now. It's time for me to be in my prime and to be this generation's Pekka Rinne. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, they're making a commitment to him. And, I heard you guys earlier talking about could they move him? Sure, absolutely. At some point in the future, absolutely. I mean, nobody ever thought Shea Weber with his contract would be moved. And David Poyle did that. So, but right now, they've shown him confidence. It's your net. Go in there, be our guy, and it's going to be on him now to take some steps. You're 29. It gets a little tougher the older you get. And Pekka Rinne changed his routine to be better each off season, whether it was diet, workout. It's now up to Saros to do those kind of things, to push himself to be not just fourth in the Vezina voting like he was last year or fifth like he was this last year. Now he's got to take a step in his game. He has got to find a way to start season strong so that they don't have to put together runs to get in the playoffs. He's got to be good all season long, and he's got to win a playoff series. So what does he do to develop his game? And can Mitch Korn, Pekka Rinne, Ben Vanderklok help him, on the ice, get to, hone that game? It's time for him to take a step forward and be even more, because he's certainly being paid that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so the draft's in the books. We'll talk about Igor and Teddy and those guys that, might end up, reaching the ranks of playing in Bridgestone sooner than later. But we see that UC's in the books. What's next? You mentioned next steps for UC Saros and taking his game to the next level. What will be the next steps since everything else seems to already be in place?
Well, it feels like Barry Trotz is going to be. He showed a year ago that he's not afraid to be aggressive. I'm expecting aggressive Barry Trotz today. When free agency starts at 11 o'clock our time, Stamkos is out there. And, this team, when you can't put the playoff loss all on Saros, and I'm not. They need another scoring threat aside from Philip Forsberg. And Stamkos, 34, he's raised a couple of times. He's played for it and lost. That's a piece that, can you plug him in and maybe go get somebody else in free agency? I want to see what Barry does to help improve this roster because they need more scoring. It is that simple. For Burnett's system, I'm very curious to see. I'm expecting Trotz to be aggressive, and I can't wait to see what he does. I do, yes, there are other teams being mentioned with Stamkos, but and this could end up biting him in the bottom. Hey, everybody thought Matt Duchene was the answer, and he didn't help them get over the edge here in Nashville. He did some good numbers, but it felt very underwhelming before literally they bought him out to make him just go away, right? So I want to see what Barry does, and I think he is going to try to make a splash, and honestly, they do. He made it clear when they wrapped up, the mushy middle is a place he does not want to be.
Yeah, no team in the NHL wants to be in the mushy middle. It seems like they've been in that spot for quite a while, just not being able to get it out of the first round of the playoffs, Teresa. When you talk about a Stamkos, clearly he has still been productive, and I agree with you, been that leader for Tampa ever since, they've really been a winning franchise. You bring him over here, you're just expecting him to maybe be able to still produce at that level in terms of second-line scoring. But, Teresa, at some point, where are you going to see the youth of this Predators organization in terms of scoring talent? How do they get to that level where they're able to bring them out of the cupboards and not necessarily just sign a 34-year-old free agent?
That's the problem, right, Kayla?
Yeah.
And Milwaukee is stocked. They've got people there. And I think it was you who said that Evangelista is among those guys who's got to step up. Some of this youth has got to essentially kick the door down and say, I'm ready, and come into Nashville, whether it's in training camp, when they bring them up from Milwaukee and give them those shots. They've got to show, I'm your guy. And that's the problem with that draft over the weekend. You see these guys, Igor, which is a great name. I love that he spells it with an E and not a Y. But these guys they've got to say, I'm your guy, and you don't need to go get somebody. I can be that guy. And the problem is you only do that in NHL games. You can't do it on the AHL level and be enough to be convincing. That's the challenge as Barry's looking for help and Andrew Burnett, and they're trying to find the answers for those positions and those extra scores. It's not easy. It's like you give them those opportunities, you call them up, and sometimes they're limited ice time, and you just have to put the puck in, the biscuit in the basket, as Christy likes to say. And, they've got to kick the door down. They've got to say, I am your man. And it's like, hello, the opportunity is certainly there, and I want to see who seizes it. Not, they've had guys come up, they just, they've shown promise. Well, it's not enough to show promise. You've got to do it.
Teresa, I agree with you when you mentioned UC Saros, and my biggest thing with him has also been from start to finish, like that consistency and not getting off to a slow start, underperforming in the playoffs. Look, it is what it is at this point, but, it doesn't all lie on him, especially in the playoffs. You do have to get that front help in front of you. Anything that you feel like they could do defensively, in this off season to help boost that part of the roster? I know Alexander Carrier looks to maybe be resigned. He's more of a fourth line guy. What do you look at with that, Teresa?
Well, it looks like they're bringing back Carrier. I mean, there's got to be some development, and that's the thing. I was wondering and thought that I'd like to see them maybe add some size and speed in the defensive core to go around Roman Josi. I mean, he finished second in the Norris voting. I mean, we know how good Roman Josi is, but they've got to be better in front of Saros. Give him some help, and keep some of those shots from. I'm sorry, I have a hard time. I remember the 4 goals in 8 games span where Saros gave up a goal on 4 times. The first shot of a game that he faced, that made an impression on me. But, yes, they can improve greatly on defense around him. And, again, they've got guys at Milwaukee that, they've got size, they're young, they've got legs, they can skate. And I think they're going to have to see in camp in September, the developmental camp is getting ready to yank up here. And so they can start looking at guys. They're going to have to get some of these kids to step up and seize the reins, seize opportunities, because I don't know the guy who can be that yet, but they need somebody to help around that top defensive pairing, because they have to be better. This team has always been net out, and the defense hasn't been good enough in front of Saros to give him the help that Pekka had at times, and Pekka was good enough to cover up when it wasn't there for him.
Teresa, as you know, the Predators have made some major trades in their history. The Shea Weber, PK Subban trade that you mentioned, the 2007 move for Peter Forsberg, I remember, was a massive coup at the time, despite the fact that he was late in his career. But coming out of the lockout, the move to sign Paul Kariya is still the biggest free agent move in Nashville Predators history. I remember that day well, even though I was not very old at that point. Teresa, if the Predators added Steven Stamkos, would that be the biggest and most notable free agent move in franchise history?
Yes, because why? Stamkos has a couple of cups. That's the thing. And you would be convincing him to come here as a free agent because he thinks he can win some more. And, he's been playing for enough cups in Tampa. He wants that chance. And Korea, I was actually trying to remember. I don't think he was the biggest at that point.
Yeah.
Steve Sullivan before that. Forsberg, we didn't get Peter Forsberg at his height. But Stamkos is as close to his peak as I think that the Predators would get. So, yes, I put him immediately at the top. Now, Korea was a huge signing at that time. Why? Because this was still an expansive franchise. And him coming to Nashville showed some confidence that this was a hockey town. But that question has been well erased. 2017 ended that discussion. Nashville's a hockey town. Stamkos will be choosing this team because he thinks he can come here and win. That's what he's looking for. When you're 34 and you've won a couple of cups, you want money, yes. You want to win.
Teresa, we've entered the month of July. Training camp will happen this month, and we were talking earlier this morning about who the most underrated player on the Tennessee Titans roster is. Is there one player that comes to mind who you think is the most underappreciated on this Titans team?
I'm going to say Will Levis because, I mean, think about it. I mean, he's 3-6 as a starter, and you look at all these national rankings, and they've got the Titans near the bottom, and most of it is because they don't believe in Will Levis. And it's like, did you not see that they essentially revamped the most, if not all, of the offensive line? I mean, the one starter who we know for sure is back is Peter Skoronski. And so they went out and they built up this offense around Will Levis. He's got all the tools, and yet people still don't want to buy in to what this young man can do. I point to the Miami game. That was the game that told me he can be that guy if they give him enough help. And I think that he's got the help. But for the national folks, I think he's got to go out and show he can be that guy. And that's why I picked Will Levis.
All right. T-Dub's in the house. Extrapolate that to one step further. Will asked me the question during my era, and the one that we referenced when you first started covering us back in the 1900s, Teresa, who is the most underrated Tennessee Titan that you've covered?
Well, this is going to be an interesting answer, but because he was such a tweener coming into the draft, and people were like, I don't know what position he's going to play. Javon Curse, the freak. People were like, there's a reason why he was in the middle of the draft available for the Titans to take in 1999. And to me, it was the catalyst for this team. Yes, there was a little thing called the Music City Miracle, but, you know, what he did setting the rookie sack record, in hindsight, it's almost like, you got to be kidding me. But people forget there was a lot of questions. Is he a linebacker? Can he put his hand on the ground? What can he be in the NFL? There were serious questions about Javon, and he answered every single one of them.
All right, Teresa, I'm doing this one just for Will Bowling here, and you do cover the Memphis Grizzlies. So I do have to ask you, with the recent NBA draft, what do you think about the move to, in my opinion, kind of a high move for Zach Edey to be a part of the Grizzlies now?
Well, he is the two-time AP College Player of the Year, and he fills the one need that the Memphis Grizzlies had, big man. They needed somebody because Steven Adams is no longer on that roster. My problem is, can he get up and down the floor for a team that runs up and down the floor? When they're at their best, the Grizzlies are fast. And Zach Edey, I mean, Tennessee ball fans know. I mean, you know, you cannot – they call the 3-second rule in the NBA, okay? He is going to have to learn to not camp in the lane in the NBA. And the way they run, Chris Vernon, who works for Grind City Media, he had a great thing on June 3rd, said John Morant can be up and down the court 9 times in the time that it takes Zach Edey to go once. So, and this was before Memphis took him. So, now, yesterday there was an announcement that Edey is not going to be in the Olympic competition camp to try to make the Canadian roster for the Paris Games, to focus on his NBA career. He needs to be in Summer League for the Grizzlies, and they need to try to get him literally up to speed. But, you know, he could be the piece. There's been a lot of way too early rankings saying the Grizzlies, they're going to try to sneak into the play-in tournament. Folks, when this team was healthy, they were the number 2 seed in the Western Conference in consecutive years. It's just an injury-riddled season. Where have we heard that before? That cost them, you know, had them picking 9th in the draft last week. So this is a good team, and they just need to be healthy. And I can't wait to see, can Zach Edey actually move up and down the court in the NBA?
Tennessee Sports Writer of the Year, Teresa Walker, has been our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Teresa, congratulations again, and thank you as always for joining us.
Thank you, and yes, well, I'm going to make Mike get into a couple pictures and share them later. So
I love it.
Yes, thank you guys.
Bring me back some Buc-ee's, Teresa.
That's the next stop on the list.
There we go.
Nice.
Drive safe, team.
Teresa Walker joining us
Teresa.
this morning here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, agreeing with us that I think 8 years is quite a lot for UC Soros.
Yeah.
So interesting perspective there from someone who has covered that team as well since the day they got to town. 615-737-1045. Speaking of national analysis and numbers talking about the Titans, Pro Football Focus has ranked every offensive line in the NFL. They do not think very highly of the new Titans O-line, and we've got that for you next. Kicking off the month of July with you this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW, 23 days until the Titans hit the practice field for training camp 2024. It'll be here before you know it. Mm-hmm. But that means that this is list season, boys and girls. Pro Football Focus is ranking every group of players in the National Football League, if you're into that sort of thing. They have offensive line rankings this morning. They say the Titans fielded arguably the NFL's worst offensive line in 2023. They can expect improvements in 2024, at least on paper. After taking Peter Skoronski with the 11th overall pick in 2023 to play left guard, Tennessee selected J.C. Latham out of Alabama with the 7th overall pick this offseason. The team also signed Lloyd Cushenberry, where he ranked 10th in PFF overall grade at center in 2023. All of that being said, where would you rank the Titans' offensive line? Is it fair to say the Titans at least have a middle-of-the-road offensive line going into this season before I give you where PFF has them ranked?
It is fair to say that. And I say the reason why it's fair is because you have a veteran influence in the middle with Lloyd Cushenberry, a first-round investment last year in Peter Skoronski that I think has an elevated ceiling. Okay, especially in the right system. The right side is still in flux, and that's the only reason why I'm saying, kind of middle of the road, because if J.C. Latham pans out to be the tackle with Bill Callahan's instruction that we anticipate him being, then that left side is going to be locked down for the next 10 years. Okay? Now, does there need to be some figuring it out on that other side? Sure. And that's probably where my trepidation lies, where the question marks I still have about this offensive line are my concerns. Which one of those guys is going to rise? Is it going to be Sadiq Charles? Is it going to be, NPF? I mean, even Dylan Radin's on the inside. Is he an outside guy? I mean, what are we doing here? And obviously, once practice starts and the pads start popping, that conversation will separate itself. Mm-hmm. But I think that I would agree with you that middle of the road is probably the best scenario I would give them, only because of the uncertainty on that right side.
Yeah. Look, I would even say if they didn't add the biggest crucial part to this offensive line, which is offensive line coach Bill Callahan in the offseason, I think we'd still be a little worried. Look, I know Lloyd Cushenberry has proven it. He absolutely has. And that's a big part to shore up in the center. No question about it. Especially coming from Aaron Brewer, which, by the way, PFF ranked Aaron Brewer above Lloyd Cushenberry in their centers, which is hilarious.
Well, we told you this is subjective. We'll talk about that.
Yes. So I would still, though, say if Bill Callahan wasn't to join the staff, we still could be a little bit more questionable about the development of J.C. Latham back over at left. Skoronski taking the next step, which I think we all feel comfortable that he is able to do and has shown that. But the right side, you'd be even more worried about, because with the names that we just listed off, and maybe you didn't have Bill Callahan to get the most out of those guys that are fighting for those roles, we'd be like, oh gosh, we're in trouble, right? And I would say maybe you even think they're lower than the middle of the road if you didn't have Bill Callahan. But because that kind of shores up a lot and you feel like he can get the most out of whoever is going to be battling, especially for those right guard and right tackle positions, I feel more comfortable about saying right now, just because we haven't seen it yet, they're middle of the road. But I have hopes that they eventually throughout the season could be better than that.
Without a right tackle, without a right guard, I think the Titans are still in the bottom third of the league. I think they're top of the bottom third when it comes to offensive lines. Pro Football Focus has them 30th out of 32 teams.
I'd say that was because of the right side.
Yeah. Sure.
They don't have a right guard or a right tackle right now. Mm-hmm. I don't.
At all.
I mean, 40% of your position group is a complete unknown. I think that's totally fair to have the Titans at 30th coming into the season, because we are assuming a step forward for Peter Skoronski. We are assuming that Lloyd Cushenberry plays up to his paycheck, and that's not always the case with free agent offensive linemen. Look at how bad Mike McGlinchey was last season after leaving San Francisco and going to Denver. And then you've got a rookie left tackle that we're assuming is going to live up to expectations. I think it's fair to say the Titans have to start at that point. I will say this, though, guys. I think if the Titans have a middle-of-the-road offensive line, they are a playoff team this season. I think that is all it will take. And that's a big leap. That is not a guarantee that the Titans will have a top 16 offensive line in the league. And obviously there are caveats, right? Like the offensive line can get better, but if Will Levis gets hurt, they're probably not making the playoffs. Like there are guys that can get hurt on both sides of the ball that we can't control those variables. But I will say, I believe the Titans are a playoff team if they have a top half of the league offensive line. That's what it's going to take. Just be average, because your weapons are above average. Your wide receivers are above average. I think your running backs are above average. I think you got one of the best running back rooms in the league. You just need the big guys to be top half. That's all it's going to take.
That'd be phenomenal. Because
that's also going to take a lot.
Yeah, but if what you're saying is true, in other words, that the Titans are only 2 positions better than where they finished the season last year at last, for offensive line rankings, standpoint, for them to be in the middle of the pack, that's an exceptional year. Having gone all that way up to be mentioned around the 16 best teams, or even tickling around that conversation, versus where you've been considered as of lately.
The only 2 offensive lines they have worse than the Titans, the Seahawks and the Saints. So
yeah, I see that too.
Titans starting at 30. Yeah, that's right.
They had to draft the first guy too.
615-737-1045. Headlines when we come back. The big news of the morning, the Nashville Predators going after the biggest move maybe in franchise history. We'll discuss that next.
What's going on? 9 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NBA and NHL drafts wrapped up over the weekend. Attention's on free agency now with a bunch of big names deciding where they're going to play. Paul George decided he wants to be a Philadelphia 76er. 4 years, $212 million. That the 76ers weren't done. Also signing Tyrese Maxey to a max deal. Philadelphia hoping playoff P can help them get over the playoff hump. James Harden signing a 2-year, $70 million contract to stay with the Clippers. Chris Paul signing a 1-year deal with the Spurs. NHL free agency is set to begin today at 11. No shortage of stars available in free agency. Steven Stamkos and Elias Lindholm are among the most prominent names on the open market. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Your Monday morning continues right here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will for 60 more minutes to begin the beautiful month of July. 615-737-1045. How you hop in? You're not that guy. Coming up in 20 minutes, your opportunity to take something negative that happened in your weekend and take it to the people. Take it to the streets of Nashville, Tennessee, in the F&M Pink chat as well, where you could watch the show live on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, Will Bowling. Ramon Foster will reintroduce himself to you, the listener, tomorrow.
But just 2 days because we're off on Thursday and Friday.
That is correct.
How great would it be if we just didn't show up?
Yes!
Why don't we just let Ramon come in and do the show by himself?
It's the Ramon Foster Show tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.
With Ramon Foster.
and Ramon Foster.
Ramon Foster.
You should make one that just says his name 3 times. It has 3 different opens of like him being, saying the Baltimore defense thing. I almost slipped up and said it myself because then you could have had me saying it.
You're smart. You're too smart. But I'm not going to work harder to do something for Ramon again. So we're going to give him the work, all the heavy lifting.
And no more Twitch pleases from you.
He doesn't know that yet, though.
Okay, I'll keep it a secret.
Interesting. Okay. I know Brad has a You're Not That Guy coming up in 20 minutes. He is excited
My
about
goodness.
it.
Wait, I didn't hear about this, but I'm excited.
Yeah. He said it on air about an hour ago.
What? I missed that one. Woo!
Thanks, Kayla.
Sorry about it.
So talking with Teresa Walker this morning, we asked her about the long-term extension for UC Saros as it pertains to Yaroslav Askarov, who is not traded by the Nashville Predators over the weekend. The Titans have a lot of reported interest in Steven Stamkos, 2-time Stanley Cup winner for the Tampa Bay Lightning. 128 games of playoff experience for Stamkos. Greg Wisniewski of ESPN writes this morning, I heard the Predators as a potential landing spot for Stamkos back in March. He fits the philosophy that GM Barry Trotz has quickly established in Nashville, playing with offensive pace under coach Andrew Burnett and augmenting young roster with veteran stars who have won before. We talked with Teresa about that this morning, about how this could be the biggest move in free agency the Nashville Predators have ever made.
Well, it feels like Barry Trotz is going to be. He showed a year ago that he's not afraid to be aggressive. I'm expecting aggressive Barry Trotz today. When free agency starts at 11 o'clock our time, Stamkos is out there. And, this team, when you can't put the playoff loss all on Saros, and I'm not. They need another scoring threat aside from Philip Forsberg. And Stamkos, 34, he's raised the cup a couple of times. He's played for it and lost. That's a piece that, can you plug him in and maybe go get somebody else in free agency? I want to see what Barry does to help improve this roster because they need more scoring. It is that simple. For Burnett's system, I'm very curious to see. I'm expecting Trotz to be aggressive. and I can't wait to see what he does. I do, yes, there are other teams being mentioned with Stamkos, but and this could end up biting him in the bottom. I mean, hey, everybody thought Matt Duchene was the answer, and he didn't help them get over the edge here in Nashville. He did some good numbers, but it felt very underwhelming before literally they bought him out to make him just go away, right? So I want to see what Barry does, and I think he is going to try to make a splash, and honestly, they do. He made it clear when they wrapped up, the mushy middle is a place he does not want to be.
Ugh.
That was Teresa Walker with us earlier this morning. Steven Stamkos last season played in 79 games for Tampa, scored 40 goals, added 41 assists. That would be the second highest point total and the second highest goal scoring total if he was on the Predators last season with those numbers.
Yeah, and here's the good thing about Ryan O'Reilly. I'll talk about him in a minute. Steven Stamkos is you still see the production out of him, right? And not only that, but he has been able to do it in the playoffs to thus help them win 2 cups there. And you look at the Predators last season. I will say this. They were able to be more offensively production. They averaged 3.24 goals last season. That was 10th in the NHL. However, once the postseason came around, this team was not able to muster up enough goals when it mattered, right, in the postseason.
Right.
And you get a guy like Steven Stamkos who does it consistently, who has done it in the postseason, who has helped his team, win championships. He's able to get them to the next level, not just in the regular season, but down the road. And you add him to this team and you're thinking, okay, that's a bonus, right? You could have him on the first line, centering the first line. You could move Ryan O'Reilly down. Or if you feel like the chemistry is still good with that first line, to have Ryan O'Reilly with Philip Forsberg, then you move him down to center the second line and get that productive second line scoring. So whatever you want to do with it, it adds a versatile piece that's going to do one thing, help you with your offensive numbers.
Yeah, I just like the aggressiveness, like Teresa talked about, like Will mentioned, the fact that they're willing to swipe the debit card and get quality players in, like Stamkos, and even going back to the Conn Smythe winner, like you just mentioned, people that really move the needle. To me, it feels very D-Hop-esque. You know what I mean? Bringing in a player that has some quality to him, can affect the bottom line by putting goals and putting the puck in the net, just like D-Hop was providing explosive plays and had almost 1,000-yard season, with a new quarterback. So, I like the addition. It does kind of give you that feel that they may be turning the corner, and maybe this is what Bernard Andrew needs. Basically to help keep what his philosophy is, like you just mentioned, that offensive pace, putting pressure on nets. For them to continue to get back to where we kind of used to seeing the Preds.
Yeah. It is interesting that the Lightning did clear $11 million in cap space by trading Tanner Jeannot and by making a couple of moves. However, they also sent a 2025 third-round pick to Carolina for Jake Gensel's rights. That essentially allows them to have the first negotiating window with Gensel before free agency officially opens. They did not trade for him. They traded for the right to get first dibs at negotiating with him. Gensel expected to get a deal north of $9 million a season with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Elliot Friedman, worldwide hockey writer. You don't just say national when it comes to hockey, considering that it's not just our country that pays attention to it, says, my money is on Nashville for Stamkos, but a lot of suitors are putting on their cufflinks in this dating game. Greg Wisniewski's first team that he put in the top contender tier for Stamkos on ESPN.com, the Detroit Red Wings. So Steve Yzerman, the head of hockey operations for Detroit, a lot of links there between those two.
And I just think at this time of his career, he's 34 years old, like we keep mentioning, how far does he want to move his family? What is he willing to do with all the outside stuff? Like we mentioned, I know taxes, it sounds like a stupid thing, but it's not. Especially if you're at that point of your life and you're trying to figure out, how I'm going to end things for my career. I just feel like what's best for him and his family.
Trust me, at 34 years old,
Yeah, you can say something to this.
I was released by the Titans, and there were a few teams that showed interest, and I'm having the same conversation with myself. I've got kids now that are about to start school. Do I want to uproot them and try and go someplace else? No, that wasn't even a thought for me, especially having transitioned from Houston to this city. Now, the question is quality of life. Which would you rather? The Gulf or the Cumberland? You know what I mean? The Appalachians, maybe hanging out and going to do some skiing, or do you like water sports? You know what I mean? It's, like you just said, economically, with the tax implications, it's a wash.
Yeah.
But as far as like where you see yourself maybe retiring, or where you see see your kids going to school, where you want to raise a family.
Detroit's a lot different than Nashville.
Hey, that's not even in the same conversation. Not even thinking about Detroit.
No shade. It's just different.
No,
right?
I'm throwing complete shade.
I mean, Stamkos has spent his whole career in Tampa Bay.
Right. Who wants to go to Detroit? If I had I'd say Tampa would have a better chance of re-signing him than it would be.
But the next best thing
would be Nashville,
in my opinion.
Jake Gensel is officially a Tampa Bay Lightning player. That's broken within the last hour. 7 years, $9 million, like we expected.
There you go.
I think it's interesting that hockey teams, and like Tampa in this situation, puts out the exact dollar amount.
Yeah.
That Jake Gensel got.
Right? We're not used to it.
The team press release says, we have signed Jake Gensel to a 7-year contract worth an AAV of $9 million.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. 615-737-1045. Load up the phone lines if you've got something to complain about. It's too hot outside. Traffic in Nashville's the worst. You got plenty on your mind. Bring it to us, because You're Not That Guy is next.
Hey. Hey, it's Kayla and Ramon from our friends at Window Nation. So I was taking a peek the other day, to be not named, but windows at a certain place, and could see, the mold, could see the water, and was thinking, okay, this definitely is somebody who needs new windows. And our friends at Window Nation right now can help you out if you're dealing with those situations where you can't open them properly or they're not staying open. They're extending their semi-annual sale, 50% off all window styles, plus 0% interest for 5 years, and an additional bonus if you actually schedule an appointment this week.
No doubt about it. And all they do are windows, okay? Installed over 200,000 windows last year. That's 40 times more than the average window company, with 96% of them having no follow-up services. Kayla just told you, weather impacts your windows. So if you have any issues with condensation, you touch them, they're hot, you touch them, they're cold, guess what? Get Window Nation over it. And you can call them at 866-90-NATION or go online to windownation.com.
Monday morning continues in hour number 4 of RKW. 615-737-1045 is how you get in line to complain. With Brad Hopkins and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Robert Walsh making the show happen. You're Not That Guy is Mondays at 9:20 in the football offseason. We take any guy, any girl, any machine, robot, person on an airplane, whoever it may be. We complain about it at this time every single Monday morning. 615-737-1045. Take your complaints to us at 615-737-1045. Robert Walsh, hit the music. (615-737-1045) for You're Not That Guy. I'm going to go lead off this morning.
Go.
On a company that we have talked a little bit about over the last few weeks. Now, if you know me, if you've listened to this show for more than 5 minutes, you know that I am ecstatic about the new NCAA football video game with early access that comes out on July 16th and the full game that comes out of the people on July 19th. And look, I can't complain a lot about a video game that I have spent so much time on in my entire life. NCAA 14 came out in the summer of 2013. It has been 11 years since the last time we got a brand new college football video game. There should be no reason for EA Sports to have to tease us and mock us in order to get us talking about their game. The game is one of the more highly anticipated games that has come out in a very long time. However, they are going after fan bases like the University of Tennessee. They are poking and prodding us to get us talking. Not only that, they are propping up one team that is garbage, that has a head coach that gets people talking. I am talking about the pride of the Big 12, the University of Colorado. So last week when the EA Sports video game put out the top 25 teams on the game as it pertains to overall rankings, Tennessee and Missouri were nowhere to be found in this. Two teams that are not only going to be top 25 teams, they will both be in the first preseason coaches and AP poll, probably top 15 teams. There is no Tennessee or Missouri anywhere in the top 25, but there is Colorado. Ranked as the 16th best team in college football. EA Sports, we are familiar with your game. We know exactly what you are doing. You are putting in the big brand, the big name of Deion Sanders. You want people talking. You want radio shows like this one complaining about your rankings in order to get people more excited for your video game. EA Sports, you don't have to lure us. We're already going to buy it. We're already going to play it. We need to play it with smiles on our faces and not frowns when it comes out. Quit trying to manipulate us to talk more about the game, even though I just gave you what you wanted. I still, EA Sports, say to you, you are not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
So negative is the positive. Getting you buzzing about.
Yeah.
Everyone's buzzing about it.
Yeah, get that lure out of Will's mouth.
They had Memphis as a top 25 offense in college football and not the Tennessee Volunteers.
And disrespected y'all in the stadium standings, too.
I mean, and they've had these ratings for whenever. They could have dropped these ratings whenever they wanted to.
That's right.
You know what I mean? They waited until the dead of the summer when there is absolutely nothing else going on. They knew what they were doing, and you called it out. But sometimes you got to step in that bear trap. It just looks too good.
Absolutely. Brad Hopkins, take it next. You were excited about You're Not That Guy this morning.
Jamarcus Russell was relieved of his volunteer coaching duties at Williamson High School in the fall of last year. According to court documents, Jamarcus Russell deposited and cashed a $75,000 check at Navigator Credit Union in July of 2022. Now, Chris Knowles, who wrote the check, is the owner of Selwonk Enterprises. It's a local building company there in Mobile, right? Mm-hmm. According to Knowles, who is a lifetime LSU fan. Of course, he supports Jamarcus Russell, who had an illustrious career there, not so much in the NFL, but either way, Russell approached him about donating to the school's football program to get some weight equipment.
Okay.
Well, apparently he wrote the check. Jamarcus went and deposited into his account and then took $55,000 out of that deposit obviously for his own doing. So that you would actually pilfer from your own high school, your own alma mater, and in taking the money from that would be for the kids and that weight room and whatever you did with it.
Gosh.
Now, I can't say at this point that maybe he had a personal account of which he was buying this equipment, and it needed to be in his account for him to actually purchase it. Something weird. But either way, the school was supposed to get the money. They never got the money, and so they fired him because of that. So guess what, Jamarcus Russell? You're just not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Yeah, he has never been that guy.
You talk about a guy who, was just a bust. We talk about Isaiah Wilson all the time. This is a quarterback who is a bust, like a huge bust.
Do you know why he was a bust? Couldn't control his weight.
He was fat.
Yes.
Well, it couldn't control his weight. Of course, the fat is the culmination, but I'm just saying.
I love
the habits.
We played it recently, the Stephen A. Smith rant about Jamarcus Russell. It's so good. Said, now I mean no disrespect whatsoever, but a lot of people deserve second chances, except for this dude, this slobbily Jabba the Hutt. It is one of his best rants ever.
Yeah, he was first overall by the Raiders.
How many 45 weights did that school need? How many weights they really need, y'all? Come on now. Come on.
Sounds like Jamarcus Russell needs him to lose some of his weight.
Sure, maybe that's what he was doing.
Is there a recent picture?
He also facilitated the deal, you know what I mean? He got that dude to donate the money. We should let him get a little piece of it, you know what I mean?
Goodness.
Be a little easier on Jamarcus.
Fee, Bert.
That's what I'm saying. I'm a worse guy than you guys are, so it makes a lot more sense if I would do that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'll cut in front of the line and go ahead and get my bad voice out here. My You're Not That Guy goes to somebody, and I don't want this to be misconstrued as me making fun of poor people. It's not a poor people thing.
You're off to a great start.
My God,
it's a broke people thing. So this weekend I was at a bachelor party, and again I ain't got a lot of money neither. I'm kind of broke too back here. But if you're going to go on a trip like that, don't you being broke be everybody else's problem. We had a gentleman this weekend. No. He was a fantastic guy to be around. I'm being very sarcastic. But at every opportunity, he would volunteer to buy something and then would like everyone else to reimburse him for buying this. So whether it was a beer run, he would, I got some beer if you guys want to Venmo me. I don't, and I will drink it as many of them as I can. I promise you. I bought a funnel for that exact reason. Buy an Uber. Oh, guys, I got an Uber. Well, you got a regular Uber, and there's 58 of us here. So I'm not splitting this Uber with you. Ramon would have got a black. But at every opportunity, it was like he was stepping up so someone else could give him money back. If you're broke, just say that, dude. Just don't come out. Don't come to trips like this. Don't go to places if you are going to put the burden on someone else to financially reimburse you. Now, dinner's one thing, going out's one thing, but if you make it everything, you are not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
I hope you're listening, Steven. I'm not paying you any money for that dinner.
Get him.
That's solid. And on a trip like that, too, if you're going to do the Venmo thing, I feel like you have to just get a tab at the end of the trip and be like, hey, I've been keeping tabs of this. I'm going to shoot out requests. Like as you are leaving and cleaning up the Airbnb or like the Verbo or whatever you're doing, it's like, hey, like I'll go ahead and shoot you a request. Like that's fine. But if you do it like, hey, can I get that $3 from you for your 1/18th of the Uber we just took? Like, buddy, no.
Same dude ordered Instacart for breakfast. We're all dead asleep.
Yeah.
It's the middle of it's 7:30 on a Saturday after we were out all Friday night. And we wake up and he's made breakfast. He's got it all out. And he's like, oh, I'll Venmo request you guys for that. No one asked you to make breakfast. No one asked you. And by the way, the bacon was floppy. The eggs were overdone. You are a terrible person.
Unacceptable.
Hopefully his flight got delayed.
Dang.
Sound like he was on a trip to make some money.
I just don't like people. I think I'm slowly finding out I just don't like people.
Well, you said on your trip there were boys from, this should be a movie, two sides of the track, right?
Oh, so getting into dangerous territory.
This is not the track.
No, they're just from New Jersey.
Just different.
Like some of them are from the South.
People?
Some of them are from New Jersey.
Wait, this is a pro New Jersey radio program.
Not on this side of the glass.
Kind of track.
Peyton is a fine person, and Sopranos are great. But other than that,
all right.
Armpit of America.
That's all I need from you. Kayla?
So I did share this during the break, and I apologize because I realized I was sharing it without even knowing that was going to be You're Not That Guy, because I was going to call out Travis and Red, my beloved Red Lab, but I'm not going to do that because this topped it.
You just did.
Well, he said I could.
It's like
but you don't know what it's for.
It's like if I was going to call him out, I would say it this way. This is what happened. However, that's not what I'm going to do.
Let's just say that one was because he left food in the trash and Red took it upon himself to have a grand breakfast one morning. But anyway.
You're not that dog.
Yeah, you're not that dog, Red. Or you're not that husband, Travis. He knew I was going to call him out. So it was pre-talked about. Anyways, so I'm not gonna go into detail because I'm just not gonna do that. Because the establishments that I go to usually do a really good job at everything. And if they don't, then they're not going to be somewhere where I go back to. But this one particular place where I've always gone to get massages, they usually do a great job, right? They're peaceful. You get in there, you fall asleep usually during a massage. You're done and you're like, okay, I'm feeling refreshed. Everything is good. This particular time that I went, and I won't even say when I went, I, really needed to get some rest. So I was looking forward to it. I had aches and pains in my upper back and neck. So I was like, I wanted a peaceful time. It's set in my little thing where you pre-register that I don't want to hear people talking. I just don't. And I'm one of those people that I will talk with you. If you talk, I'm not going to ignore you. Just not rude like that. But for some reason, on this particular day, when it's never been an issue in the past, I go in, I'm laying down, I'm ready to go. And from the start, it was like conversation and it did not end. And even when I would give those short answers and I'm like, oh, that feels good in my neck. I'm thinking, oh, I'm just trying to relax. And then it would be, and now we're going to another subject. And I'm trying to be very polite, but I'm kind of giving 1 to 2 word answers, which sometimes I feel like triggers you just want to relax. And this went on for the whole, as you lay upwards part of the massage. And I'm like, I can't relax. I'm trying to go to sleep. And at some point, once you get to the feet, I think that was when they had brought it to another subject. And I finally, said a mumble word or something. And that might have triggered that I was done with this conversation and that I just wanted to be peaceful in silence. So when I flipped over, it was silent, but that was only for about 20 minutes of the hour massage. So
hour massage? Wow.
Yeah, for that. Is that not long?
That's short.
No, I think that's a lot.
That's short.
Oh, you do?
Oh, I've only had one massage ever in my life.
Oh.
Once?
I'm not a massage guy.
What's wrong with you?
Okay, go ahead.
So I know usually it's an hour and a half for me.
Right,
but
90 minutes.
Funds right now, you got to be good on the funds.
That's right.
So I just felt like for most of the massage, I was so focused in on trying to answer her questions that I was not able to really live out the moment of that 60 minutes. So for that, you are not that guy. Or
you're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
You know what could have solved that very easily?
Yeah, just go to sleep. 100%.
Or even just do that noise.
It.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I couldn't go to sleep. That was the whole thing.
She doesn't know that.
I am really good at being rude in those situations.
Guys.
I just literally will stop responding. I'll just be like, yep, one word, done.
That's almost as bad as the Uber. You're Ubering 100%. To the airport. If I am going to an airport, I promise you I don't want to talk there or not. Leaving. Going to a location or leaving. I had the nicest old man tell me all about a Boeing airport put together. I was like, buddy, I am so hungover right now. Can you just turn the AC up full blast, please?
Yeah,
Thank
honestly.
you.
My therapist told me that I'm a very engaging people person on my own terms. And what I mean by that is there are times when I just don't feel like being bothered. And I shared that with you, just like you, Bert. That Uber ride where that guy just feels like running his mouth and looking over his shoulder and having a conversation with you and not looking at the road. I'm like, bro, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to get to the airport. I'm not that talkative at this point. Mm-hmm. So if you don't mind, sip your coffee, drive the car.
And you can put that setting on your app now, but people just don't listen to it.
That's what Kayla said. Kayla said before she went to the massage, hey, look, I just like some silence.
Yeah, I said I want it silent.
You said something because you said the same lady did you before, and twice before she hadn't spoken a word to you. So what was it that engaged the conversation? You said something to her. The guy.
I don't want to give away specifics because I don't want if anybody ever listened.
Yeah, just saying.
You know.
If you're a talkative massage therapist out there, Kayla's coming for you. Kayla's going to find out where you stay because you talk too much.
I'm not a massage guy in general. I don't do well.
Crazy.
I'm not good at relaxing. I always got to be doing something.
You don't like to be touched, do you?
Not really. No.
Yeah, see, that's probably not a good thing for
Not by
massage.
strangers. No, not in that context.
Even the ones that you.
No.
All right, never mind.
What about me? What if I was to come give you a massage?
Yeah,
Would
stranger.
you?
Yeah, could Bert give
Just
you a
step
nod
on
back
your
here?
back.
All the moving.
Now, hold on a
is
second. Let me
giving
ask you
me
this:
the
if you use a Theragun, does that count?
No, I like Theraguns.
Yeah, I'm saying like if like massage
Any
therapists nowadays, they'll
athlete
ask you
loves those things.
They'll ask you if you want to use if you want them to use the
Right.
yeah.
Oh, I like Theraguns for sure.
I love them.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kidding?
Eric in Nashville, 615-737-1045. Good morning, Eric.
Hey, good morning, guys. Guys, you could go either way with this story, because some would say you are not that guy, but some would say you are that guy with this story I'm about to tell. It is a woman, and it's Miss Kelly Stafford, who is the wife of Matthew Stafford, if you heard this story. She was on a recent podcast, and she admitted, well, of course, Matthew Stafford was the quarterback for the University of Georgia, and he had a roommate, and Kelly Stafford was dating his roommate.
Yep.
She admitted that the reason she was dating his roommate was she was doing it in hopes to make Matthew Stafford jealous, so he would bust up the relationship so she could date him. So, of course, she was dating his roommate, and then one day Matthew Stafford just jumped in the car that she was in and told her, he said, "You're not going to date that guy anymore. You're going to date me," and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, it worked, and she eventually got him as her husband, and, of course, they now have 4 kids. But, guys, I tell you what, most guys are honorable. They're not going to jump in the middle of somebody else's relationship to date somebody. If you like a guy, just go up and tell him. I've had friends who that's happened to, and they were the honorable guy and didn't bust up the relationship, and that's even happened to me. I'm not going to get in the middle of somebody else's relationship if you're dating to somebody else, because I take you serious. Don't be dating somebody and then sashaying up to me, hopeful, trying to get my attention, because that's happened to me before. I am not going to jump in the middle and get in the middle of somebody else's relationship in that type of conflict. So, Kelly Stafford, to me, you're not that girl, but some would say you are that girl for having that chutzpah. It just depends on how you look at it. Guys, y'all take care, and we'll talk again soon.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Y'all know what Kelly Stafford looks like? You can do what you want when you're popping.
Hey, but just to be clear, here, hold on a second. It wasn't his roommate, it was his backup. So it's his teammate.
By the way, have you seen the teammate? He's ugly as yuck.
So I'm just saying,
He's a quarterback.
But maybe he had a nice personality, Kayla.
A 4 as a quarterback is an 8 in terms of regular people standards. If you are an 8, but you're not a quarterback, then you're graded on a different scale.
My dude took that role a little bit too personal. He's like, I got to back him up. I got
Backup boyfriend also.
Well, and
QB2 and BF2.
But the thing was that she's dating the backup, right, to make Matthew jealous. Well, Matthew, she's dating your backup. Who said you had to get in there? And so Matthew was the spoiler, actually. She suckered him into interest.
Well, of course.
But it was him that actually interjected himself into their relationship. Now, maybe the intent was for her. She had her eyes on Matthew the whole time, but she's still engaged in talking to this. Not engaged literally, but I'm still seeing she's engaged with this dude talking to him, right? Mm-hmm. And then Matthew decided to go ahead and jump in the car and be that guy. Come on, Matthew. Matthew might not be that guy. Admittedly, things kind of worked out. He's got a family. They're together, whatever.
He got a Super Bowl.
But Matthew interjected himself into that relationship. Now, she did it intentionally to get him to be interested. But that's her playing him like a sucker. You know what I mean? I know you're going to like me if somebody else does.
This is the kind of drama I try to avoid in sports, that I let people enjoy on their TLC shows or wherever you watch Kardashians and things like that. I don't know anything about those channels, but this is what I try to avoid that are on them.
TLC? Why TLC?
I don't know. What's on TLC?
Bravo. It's Bravo.
Bravo, okay.
You know what TLC stands for?
Tender Love and Care.
The Learning Channel. To teach you things. That is what it stands for.
No, that's what it stands for. What's on TLC these days?
Beach property buyers.
I don't need
Property Brothers.
I don't know why
Hoarders.
I was being serious. I don't need any of these. I don't need the fluff in my life.
John, Kate, and 8.
Hoarders.
John, Kate plus 8. Wasn't that on TLC?
Oh my God. TLC. It's funny.
Coming up right now on TLC, there is
Oh my God!
My Big Fat American Gypsy Wedding. Coming up at 10, you've got So I Married My Ex Babysitter. That is the next episode.
The Learning Channel?
Coming up at 10. That's TLC. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I don't need this in my life.
Was that real?
Yeah, that's real. I'm looking at the website right now.
Guys, we gotta end the show early so I can get back to watch that babysitter show. That sounds awesome.
615-737-1045 if you've got complaints for us. And coming up next, ESPN has an interesting new offer for you if you've got $5,000 sitting around. Give you details if you're interested in this coming up next. Wrapping up the show on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. A little bit of Predators news on your way out. Free agency is here in the National Hockey League, and Barry Trotz appears to be a very busy man. These two tweets coming within a minute of each other. So 2 minutes ago, Pierre LeBrun, TSN Hockey Insider, and his 800,000 followers on Twitter, Athletic Insider, saying all signs still point to the Nashville Predators being the front runner for Steven Stamkos, guy who scored a lot of goals in his time with the Tampa Bay Lightning, 16 seasons. Their all-time leader in goals, games played, points. He's got 2 rings. So there's that. Then there's Elliot Friedman. 3 minutes ago, hearing Nashville has emerged as a serious contender for Jonathan Marchessault.
Let's go.
A winger for the Las Vegas Golden Knights who had 42 goals, 27 assists last season. 33 years of age for Marchessault, 34 years of age for Stamkos. You were looking at a scenario where you had 2 40-goal scorers in the same offseason. Wow.
Hey.
Man, I turned to you guys before we came on the air and I said, man, it seems like they're doing possibly some big moves like the Titans did this offseason. And when I say big moves, I mean names that aren't just names because they're washed out. Names that have actually been productive and helped their teams reach the Stanley Cup final. This is big. If they can get those two, I think you're thinking the Preds could be a contender next year.
I think that they would have to be thinking the same thing to make the decision to come here, especially highly valued players like that, right? They must have the same kind of sentiment. But also, we like the aggressive nature of spending. You know, spending to get quality players in here that add depth and add, obviously in a rotation, just elevate everybody's play. Mm-hmm. So if we're seeing some similarities in what Amy Adams Strong was being able to do, assembling a receiving core like the one we've seen this year, it's them spending money, bringing in free agents on the defensive side of the football to multi-year deals, and we see the Predators doing similar things, then maybe the result will be similar in fashion, that both of these teams can then become, national markets and therefore more competitive in their respective sports.
Amazing. Another report this morning says the Preds are also in on Brady Skjei, the defender from the Carolina Hurricanes, who had 34 assists last season.
Yep, he's good.
47 points. That's the guy who in the Chance the Rapper SNL skit, where he's the rinkside reporter.
Let's do hockey.
That one. They turn the Rangers player around. He says, who I got down here? And they look at his name, and it's spelled Skjei. And he's like, oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm not going to be doing this sideline for anyone.
As they say in hockey, let's do that hockey.
Let's do that hockey.
Interesting. Wow. Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos, 2 40-goal scorers. That would be 2/3 of your top line.
Wow. And what did Teresa Walker say? She said, they are going to be aggressive.
Yeah,
Barry Trotz is going to be aggressive today.
Man.
If that's the case, if they land those 2 juggernauts, woo, hats off.
Think of what Barry's come from when he was the coach here and the maybe lack of spending that a new market created. Exactly. And to now see a team that's actually played for a Stanley Cup and done some different things, and he's in a different seat, but their ability now to acquire that type of talent, he's got to come and see it full circle. It's got to be pretty nice.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So there you go.
Fun.
We'll keep tabs on that. Free agency will begin in just over an hour officially in the National Hockey League, and we will certainly react to a lot of that tomorrow morning. If they add Marchessault and Stamkos to go with Philip Forsberg on your top line.
Oh, my goodness.
It's the kind of top line that wins championships.
Woo, don't get me excited.
I'm actively trying to. I think we should all be excited. That is a big deal. That is a very big deal. We mentioned before the break, ESPN is going into a new line of business. I thought this was interesting this morning. Michael McCarthy of Front Office Sports putting this out. Have you guys seen the ESPN tourism department that is starting?
No.
So they are selling a VIP tour of 3 iconic ballparks for $7,000. All-access tour that includes Fenway Park. Everything that you need. Michael McCarthy saying American sports fans took 205 million sports-driven trips last year, generating $52 billion in revenue. Now ESPN wants to get into it.
My goodness. So they're doing the bet thing now this?
So they're hosting tours at other stadiums?
Yep.
Why wouldn't the stadiums themselves host the tours?
Well, they do.
But with ESPN's affiliation?
This would be a 5-day trip over Labor Day weekend that includes tickets to game, premium seats, and everything like that. That would give you, I'm pulling up the stuff right now. So guests will get to watch Blue Jays, Red Sox from the Monster, Cardinals, Yankees from a suite inside Yankee Stadium, and Braves, Phillies from a suite in Citizens Bank Park.
Fun.
A private tour of the Jackie Robinson Museum in New York. You get to meet ESPN and Yankees play-by-play guy Michael Kay and Red Sox announcer Dave O'Brien. ESPN experience coaches will accompany travelers on the tour. Tour prices start at $7,000 a person, and the tour can accommodate 45 travelers. Includes hotel, transportation, and some meals as well.
That's wild.
45 people, you get 45 people. That's 7,000 divided by 45.
A lot of money.
Divided by? It's 5, what?
That's $155 a person. If you got 45 people to split a $7,000 trip, $150 a pop.
Wait, it's splitting
I thought you
it?
said $7,000 a person.
I thought it said a person.
Oh, did it?
That's,
so if you're
that's
talking
what
about
I
$7,000,
thought.
that's what
'Cause
you
I was
just said.
like,
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said
yeah.
$7,000 into
Tour
Because I was
prices
like,
start
yeah.
at $7,000
Exactly.
per person.
Yeah.
Interesting.
$7,000. That's a nice little take home for the tours. Are you kidding me? $7,000 for 45
That's
people.
not bad.
Nice.
The Monster seats, that's the next ballpark I'm going to go to.
Oh, yeah.
Next time the Braves play up in Fenway, I'm going
That's
next year.
yeah.
It never
Nice.
works on a day that I
Gotta
can
see
go.
it.
Brad Hopkins, thank you for filling in.
Enjoy the week,
Brad, it's been
guys.
fun.
Enjoy the week.
Good time as
fun.
always. We appreciate you. We are back at it tomorrow morning. We will reintroduce the radio audience to the guy whose name is first on this show. His name is Ramon Foster.
Come on,
He played for the Vols. He played for the Steelers. He's a big fan of Baltimore's defense. And he'll be back tomorrow. We will have Austin Price. We will have Ron Slay. We'll have you 6 to 10 tomorrow morning. Back at it here at 104.5 The Zone.